They can go to Trump and say, hey, they rejected the deal. Let's get moving, right? I talked about the price of gold in the last video. I won't go into it again, but there's going to be some consolidation. I mean, these moves that we've seen are just absolutely breakneck, whiplash, wild roller coaster vacillations up and down and all around. And there's always going to be a period of consolidation, but there's infinite upside. That's all I'll say. And historically, you know, gold always goes up over time. Sometimes it trades sideways for 10 years, but usually when it does that, then that means that the things that you can purchase with it, if you need to do that, if you're desperate and you need to use your insurance policy, which is all these precious metals are, then usually you can, convert that into a fair amount of goods, fair value amount of goods for whatever period of time you're looking at. Oil refineries are burning in Romania and Hungary, so the hybrid war is spreading. So, yeah, that's about it for today. Go watch part one and stick around. We got John Carpe. I believe he is representing the, what is it called? Something Canadian constitutionalist. Anyway, he's going to tell us about how Canada is going to be a police state by December if three bills in particular get passed. So we're almost there, guys. All right. And we're going to have Alex Christoforou on as well as many other special guests in the near future and all kinds of other videos. Going to show you guys what we're doing on the farm. We got some more prepping oriented stuff. We still have our series on going out to various properties and assessing them for the preparedness, survivability, and up.
All right. Thank you, Canadian Prepper. He's talking about prepping, getting ready for the future, but his plan is more getting guns and food and, things of that nature, which is fine, Do you know what I mean? But let's not neglect following the law, statutes, commandments written in the Bible. You know what I mean? Have angels encamped around you. All right. All praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh by Hashem HaMashiach Yahushai. Yahweh being the name of the Heavenly Father. Yahushai being the name of his only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Double honors for our elders that are waking up the lost sheep in the last days. The lost sheep being the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans. Okay, which make up the 12 tribes of Israel. Qom Yasha'Allah, which means rise, Israel. Got to rise out of our dead sleep, get up out of the conditioning process, the social engineering that Esau and other nations have plagued on us since coming over to this wicked land, Babylon, modern day Sodom and Gomorrah, modern day Egypt. We're here, okay? But we're going to talk about it. All right, this class is called Everyone is Stupid Except for Me. So that is a line from The Simpsons. Homer Simpson was sitting there with his Play Dude, which was like a girly magazine. He had like a blunt or a cigar in his mouth. He wasn't going to church, or, of course, we're not talking about, Sunday church and all that other stuff, but he was just like, everybody's stupid but me, you know what I mean? And in that episode, I think his house burned down pretty much, you know what I'm saying? So we're not going to have that type of spirit that everyone's stupid but me. We're going to go over some things that are of interest, you know what I mean? Things that are going on in the last days. We're going to tie them to biblical prophecy. But first, I'm going to get these tweets, right? I got a couple tweets from a couple Edomites, right? That I think are important in these last days, okay? I'm going to read them out there. It's from Walter Kern. Let me share the screen first. Oh, before I get into this, let me just say Fair Use Act, Fair Use Act. Video is protected by the Fair Use Act of the United States of America. This is for educational purposes only. Let's let that sit in for a little bit. Okay. All right. So this first tweet, like I said, is from Walter Kern, right? And he says, can I blow the whole UFO thing wide open for you? You won't believe me anyway. It's only a matter of time until you hear things that will rock your world. If your world is rockable. You know what I mean? Because some people just like, whatever. You know what I'm saying? I don't believe I'm breathing air right now. You know what I'm saying? So he's saying, if your world is rockable, you will have a hard time verifying them, but that's true of everything you hear. It's true of unemployment statistics. You know what I'm saying? Don't believe none of that, right? Um, they will be very specific things, specific things. However, and so far out, so beyond your expectations, they will ring your bell. Let's stop there. Okay, so Walter Kern, um, this tweet pretty much, went viral not too long ago. It's almost, up to 1 million views and stuff like that, right? Because I believe that Esau is going to spill the beans somehow, some way regarding the chariots and the occupants in thereof. It's some other things that Esau obviously is privy to that he's not telling us. That's what I wanted to talk about today. Do you know what I'm saying? And if you have the mind state that everybody's stupid but you, it's going to be it's going to be a tough pill to swallow. Nevertheless, we're going to talk about it. Okay. What does it say? Ring your bell. It will ring your bell. And you will hear them from people you weren't ready to hear such things from. The shells are in the cannon. Okay. It's about to get fired. It's all about who gets to shoot it and who wins and who loses when it goes off. There's money involved. Lots. Hear me out. Oh, it's like it. Hear me now, believe me later, as they say. All right, so now we're going to get a tweet from Roseanne Barr. Remember her? Deplorable. Here's what she says. Roseanne Barr. If I were to tell you guys what's really going on, you'd all lose your ish forever. She didn't, go into details, so forth and so on, but kind of read in between the lines of what's going on, right? And she looks like she's had it. You know what I mean? Not aging well. Hair looks like she just woke up. Like she put a mop on her head. You know what I mean? Bags on her eyes. She haven't slept in days. You know what I'm saying? But it's really rough for a lot of people that have turned their life over to to Satan, the dark side, evil, and have, reaped the rewards from that, are very frightened right now. Donald Trump, all right, we're good here. Donald Trump now has given, it was supposed to be 20 million to Argentina, right? Argentina now has a contract with the United States to bring in their beef. I believe it's a contract. I'm not sure if it's written, but he already said this was happening. The beef is going to be sold in the United States. America has beef farms, cows and everything of that nature, and they can't sell their goods because now Argentina moved in. Same thing with the soybean issue. China is buying, since the tariffs, China is buying soybeans from Argentina, not from the United States. So if you're a soybean farmer in the United States, you're belly up, you know what I'm saying? Not looking good. So the farmers in the United States aren't looking good, but he decides to give not 20 billion, but 40 billion to Argentina. Why is that important? Because Argentina has a lot of bunkers, a lot of so-called elites are going to Argentina and New Zealand when things hit the fan. Okay. And Argentina is one of the most racist places on the planet because anybody that has dark skin, like myself, they were put on the front line of a war. They wanted to eradicate anybody that has dark skin, lighten up the population. Okay. So Spaniards, Portuguese, con the colonizers, country. They actually said, the president, I believe, said, I don't know if it's this president or president previously, one of the previous presidents said, if you want to find any black people, you got to go to Colombia. We don't have any here, Argentina. So that's why Donald Trump's giving $40 billion because he might just run to Argentina because things are getting crazy. All right. So everyone put on your thinking caps and let's go in. All right. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 4 and verse 7. We're going to first talk about the Fibonacci sequence. Now, you ask me what the Fibonacci sequence is. I will tell you, your guess is as good as mine. All right. I did some research on it, and I'm going to tell you how I came to that understanding. All right. Proverbs chapter 4 and verse 7. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. Exalt her, and she shall promote thee. She shall bring thee to honor when thou doest embrace her. Dost embrace her, Slakia. She shall give to thine head an ointment of grace, a crown of glory shall she deliver to thee. Hear, O my son, and receive my sayings, and the years of thy life shall be many. So we got to listen up. We got to hear what the Spirit says to the churches. Okay? Verse 11. I have taught thee in the way of wisdom. I have led thee in right paths. When thou goest, thy steps shall not be straitened. And when thou runnest, thou shalt not stumble. 13. Take fast hold of instruction. All right, we got to listen. Let her not go. Keep her, for she is thy life. Okay, so how I came to the understanding of the Fibonacci sequence. Let me show you this. Okay. Where are we? Slakia, where is? Okay, here we go. So this right here, let me share my screen. So I had a dream, right? In July 16th, 2025. And the first dream I had was at 2:19 a.m. Like if I have a dream, I wake up, I write down the time, the date and the time, and I write out as much detail as possible. So the first dream was pretty extensive, but it was more of to deal with the second dream. This was, and I didn't write the time, you know what I mean? I just woke up and in my mind was Fibonacci sequence. What is the Fibonacci sequence? I have no idea. I had no idea how to spell it. That's why it looks like, you know, my handwriting before is terrible. This one, I took my time because I was copying it from, you know, Google, YouTube, whatever I was looking at to find out what the Fibonacci sequence was. And, you know, it's one of those things where I always say, if you have a dream, write it down, write the time, write the date. It might not mean anything, but eventually it might make sense. Okay. Fast forward to today, you know what I mean? Well, actually, a little over a week ago, I watched a video by Dabu7, and he said that Three Eye Atlas is doing the Fibonacci sequence, which is a series of numbers. The person that we're about to watch will explain it more. And, that's one witness. Okay. I'm like, okay, he could be saying that. He could have made it up. We'll see. So then I saw today, well, was it today or yesterday? I'm not sure. But somebody else brought that up. And this is the reference of this lady we're about to watch saying that the Fibonacci sequence is happening on 3I Atlas, and a person from India and a person from Chile, amateur astronomers, both brought this out. They're thousands of miles apart, obviously. So then it started clicking. Something's up with 3I Atlas. Okay. It's a lot of things that's, has no tail. We're going to look at let me see if I can put up a picture, the latest picture of 3I Atlas is pretty crazy. Okay. So this doesn't look like a comet. A comet just passed by. It was called Comet Lemon or Lemon or something like that. This is the latest picture of 3I Atlas before it went behind the sun and we can no longer see it. Look at the picture on the left. Look at the picture in the middle. Looks like it ain't like no comet I ever seen. And then when you look at the picture on the right, that looks like a person face, in the nose, mouth. You know what I'm saying? Looks like a fro right there. So this is where we're at with it. Okay. This is exactly where we're at with it. Now let's focus in. So let me get my videos together so we can check out what is going on the planet today. If you're feeling kind of tired, energized, you got headaches, the sun pretty much exploded yesterday, if you will. Earth directed, I believe. Figure that out. As far as like a sunspot eruption. And when that stuff happens, it can affect our bodies. Okay. So if you feel you can't sleeping a lot, just a change or whatever, that could most likely be why. Now let's check out the Fibonacci.
At a time when NASA is still withholding critical information and high-resolution photos about 3I Atlas, with theories and speculation reaching all over the place, a new document circulating online is making huge waves. According to a report from Dr. Lacia Varon, a signal analyst with a dual-spectrum telescope in Chile, and an anonymous doctor who is a lead observer operating a 16-inch optical telescope in India, 3I Atlas just transmitted the Fibonacci sequence, not once, but in a repeated coordination pattern. 8, 13, 8, 5, 13, 8. This is the same mathematical sequence found in DNA, hurricanes, and spiral galaxies. Two observations separated by over 15,000 kilometers detected these pulses simultaneously, ruling out atmospheric interference or equipment malfunction. The pulses were stable, unaffected by the object's rotation, suggesting active control, and the spectral signature appears near 1420 megahertz, the hydrogen line, the universal frequency theorized for interstellar signaling. As always, I'm here to report the information without bias, and you can decide what to believe. You can find the sources in my detailed articles at ufonews.co, along with in the description box below. Hey ufologists, I'm Christina Gomez and welcome to this episode of UFO News Updates. This all happened on October 13th, 2025, exactly 108 years after 100,000 people witnessed the sun dance in the sky at Fatima, Portugal. NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory went dark that same day. The Mars camera has been offline since October 1st. And now 3I Atlas is behind the sun where we can't see it, bathed in more energy than a third of all of the US's nuclear plants combined. The data we need exists. We're just not being allowed to see it. Ross Coulthard from News Nation has been investigating why critical observation systems keep going offline at critical moments, and he shared what he knows about feed disruption.
Can you express what his thoughts are on NASA cutting the live feed from Mars when 3i Atlas went past? Everything was going well. Then they turned into a gray screen. What are they hiding?
You know, it's funny. I never believed any of the NASA conspiracy theories until very, very recently. I always thought it was nonsense that NASA cut the feed. And I now realize someone is cutting the feed because I've seen it. I've actually seen it happen. I can't comment one way or the other about the 3i Atlas feed being cut because, frankly, I just don't know if it was. I assume that there was a disruption. And look, disruptions do happen to transmissions. Obviously, it's a big thing to be able to receive or send a transmission across space. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if occasionally there are disruptions. But I'll tell you my story, which I have told before, but I was invited to tour as a VIP the Marshall Space Center when I was giving a speech at the Huntsville Scientific Coalition for the Study of UAPs 2 years ago. And it was a great opportunity, and I remain very grateful to the local director of NASA on location who very kindly ushered me around with the wife of another former NASA administrator, Mike Griffin. And while we were on location in the viewing room where there's a huge bank of video feeds from the space station, the International Space Station, we were looking at the feeds with the director of the Marshall Space Center talking to me with his back to those screens. And there's the control room for the receiving of signals and control of the space station to my right that we're looking at through this glass window. And as he's talking to me, Rebecca nudges me and goes, look, and there are maybe 8 or 9 egg-shaped objects moving from behind the space station, and the camera is pointed out into interstellar space. And you see these egg-shaped objects just tracking along in formation very, very slowly. And I very naively asked the director of the Marshall Space Center, excuse me, sir, are they Starlink satellites? Has somebody just released Starlink satellites? And he turns, looks at the feed, sees the objects, and then he looks through the window into the main control room and they flick a switch and they do it right in front of us. Transmission to the space station has been interrupted.
Let's talk about why the Fibonacci sequence matters. This is not numerology. This is fundamental mathematics. The sequence goes like this: 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34. According to researcher David Serrata's analysis documented on Medium, on October 13th, 3i Atlas transmitted the numbers 5, 8, and 13 as light pulses. In his hyperdimensional solar system model, these numbers have specific meanings. 5 coordinates to Earth's position in orbital harmonics. 8 relates to a theoretical orbital position between Mars and the asteroid belt. And 13 represents an outer orbital zone. If an intelligence wanted to communicate using a language any scientifically advanced species would recognize, fundamental mathematical constants would be the obvious choice. The Fibonacci sequence is not arbitrary. It is a property of nature itself. Now stay with me here because we have packed critical information and why Dr. Avi Loeb thinks 3i Atlas might be preparing a maneuver right now while hiding from view. And what comes next will show you why the data gap matters more than the claims themselves.
So at this point, there's worldwide interest in this thing, and NASA still hasn't released the photos. How is that possible?
Well, either NASA is not functional or there is a reason for that. And it's really unfortunate because that should have been the sharpest image we've got of this object with a pixel resolution of 30 kilometers. It was taken on October 2nd, 2025. And here we are, haven't seen it yet. The best picture we have so far is from the Hubble Space Telescope, 3 times worse in resolution. And what we noticed from the Hubble Space Telescope is there is a glow extending from the object towards the sun. This was confirmed in an image that was released just yesterday from a ground-based telescope. And it's very puzzling because this extension of the object towards the sun is 10 times longer than it is wide.
Now, let us address the elephant in the room. the HiRISE, the High Resolution Imaging Science Experiment camera on the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, has been offline since October 1st, 2025, and this is documented on the University of Arizona's HiRISE operation page. HiRISE is capable of resolving objects down to 30 kilometers per pixel at the 3I Atlas's distance during the Mars flyby on October 3rd. That level of detail would reveal surface features, structural anomalies, or composition details that lower resolution instruments cannot detect. The official explanation states that one of the camera's electronic units, specifically the CCD Red 4, has been failing since August of 2023. Well, this is verifiable. But here is the timeline that raises questions. On October 1st, the same day HiRISE went completely offline, the US government entered a shutdown that furloughed over 15,000 NASA employees. Just 2 days later, on October 3rd, 3I Atlas made its closest approach to Mars at 29 million kilometers, the prime observation window. Then on October 13th, the same day of the alleged Fibonacci pulses, NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory went offline for what officials called routine maintenance.
It's not like nobody is working at NASA because the government has been shut down for the past couple of weeks. So I'm sorry, I don't buy it. Do you think it's suspicious that NASA hasn't made an effort to put these photos out there?
It's strange because the principal investigator of this camera called HiRISE on board the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter is not affiliated with NASA. He is at the University of Arizona, and obviously they can still analyze the data and release it scientifically. There is no need for a press release. The European Space Agency already released their data, which was much worse quality. Because, that's the way things are in science. You make the data available to other scientists so they can look into it.
Okay, so ESA, what you're saying, ESA, the European Space Agency, they released the images that we're now showing you, but NASA has not, and NASA's got their hands on the best imagery of whatever this thing is. So, Dr. Loeb, you get the conspiracy theory that's now developing. If this thing is a comet, maybe NASA, or if this thing is an alien spacecraft, maybe NASA is deliberately covering that up by not releasing those photos. You see that, right?
Dr. Avi Loeb believes the timing is significant. On October 21st, 8 days before perihelion, the object will disappear behind the sun entirely, creating what Loeb calls the perfect setup for an O-berth maneuver, a spacecraft technique that uses a propulsion burn near a massive body for maximum acceleration benefits. Here is why this matters. At perihelion, 3I Atlas is exposed to more than 33 gigawatts of solar energy, nearly 1/3 of all of the US's nuclear power output combined. If the object can harness energy, this is the moment. The O-berth effect means maximum benefit when moving fastest. A deceleration burn at perihelion would allow the object to drop from an escape trajectory into solar orbit with minimal fuel.
So right now, that's what's happening, just for sake of time, because I got a lot of other videos. Right now, it's behind the sun, can't see it, don't know what it's doing. But NASA, or space agency, I'm not sure if it's NASA, are now about to do like the movie Armageddon with Bruce Willis in them, when it's like, all right, we got an asteroid coming to the Earth, we're gonna have to blow it up. That's exactly what they're doing now, right? And I want to emphasize some things, right? That it's really not being put out there like that. You know what I'm saying? If you're used to watching MSNBC, CNN, local news, going to work, coming home, you probably never even heard of 3I Atlas. Do you know what I'm saying? Or it's a possibility that you never even heard of this object. But that I mean it doesn't exist. So, in order to get the people, riled up, and we gotta Operation Blue Beam and everything, you got to kind of tell people this, you know what I mean? You got to keep this thing going. You got to keep it in their mind. People like, you know, they're taking away food stamps next month. I'm not worried about no daggone comet. You know what I'm saying? But they're not even like pushing it. So this next video is something that just happened. While I was talking about, we all know Esau's a born liar. You know, we're all aware of that. But it's hard to lie if you're not telling anybody anything. You know what I'm saying? So this is the next video. This is the Armageddon side of things. Like they're going to try to fight this quote unquote. It's a chariot. You know what I'm saying? It's not. I keep saying comet just for the sake of like, I don't know. I don't know why I keep saying it. But you know, after having a dream about Fibonacci sequence in July, and now apparently this object is displaying the Fibonacci sequence repeatedly. We already know what time it is. Hopefully we do. All right. So here's the Armageddon release.
This is Dabu 7, and we've got an interesting move being made here by NASA and other space agencies around the world, or those places that are in control of these telescopes, as they've literally launched this Minor Planet Center bulletin that says that the IAWN is launching a campaign on November 27th through January 27th. This campaign will target 3I Atlas. And to be clear, this is not a Reddit rumor. This is not a 4chan leak. This is straight from the IAU, connected to the University of Harvard. I've got official links here and everything. You can go read it for yourself. But they say that on behalf of NASA's International Asteroid Warning Network, the same group that coordinates global tracking and planetary defense situations, they say that this is happening for the first time in history, as this object that looks wild as it gets, 3I Atlas, has been formally enrolled into this planetary defense level observation campaign. They're calling it a test of improved astrometry methods. In other words, the object is not behaving like it should, and they admit it. They go on to say that cometary bodies are extended. They have features that can systematically pull their centroid measurements off their central brightness peak, meaning that the light and the mass do not line up in this situation. This is the exact situation astronomers have been talking about for months, about artificial light. Things aren't right with it. Nothing matches up to a normal comet. It doesn't have a tail like one. They're saying at this point, their timeline is to have a workshop on November 10th. They're going to have a kickoff meeting on November 25th. And this whole global observation, as they're putting it, is going to begin on November 27th and run to January 27th. Then they'll have a closeout telecon on February 3rd. But that window right there covers perihelion. And that's Earth's near pass, near Atlas, at its closest, brightest approach. So NASA, ESA, the IAU for months have been quiet. Now, all of a sudden, they've just activated this planetary defense network. And they did it under the cover of over this exercise, pretty much. This is pretty unprecedented right here. And let's be clear about it. It's not normal. They don't normally organize global campaigns like this for routine comets. We've never seen it before. Not to mention, you've got like more than a half dozen comets floating around out there right now in our inner solar system. Swan, Lemon, all these other ones, man. Pan-STARRS. This thing is stealing the show. And it's pretty obvious. Their quietness now, all of a sudden, all eyes on this object, calling it a training exercise. I don't think so. When every telescope from Mauna Kea to Chile is all synced on one object, that's not a drill. Something's going on with this, I'll leave links. You can read it for yourself. I'm going to cover this in more detail.
All right. So, got a planetary defense activation going on. I don't know if CNN talked about it. I'm not sure if MSNBC talked about it. But one thing I noticed is that as far as Three Eye Atlas goes, they're not talking about it. Do you know what I'm saying? I think they're scared. Do you know what I'm saying? That's just my personal opinion. And why? Now, we saw that cryptic tweet in the beginning, right? Two cryptic tweets, one from the guy Kirk and one from Roseanne. Why? Why are they so scared? For good reason. All right. So we're going to talk about it. First, let's get Genesis chapter 1 and verse 26. Who's on these chariots? And who's on the ground? Okay, they got an air force and you got ground troops. We're going to talk about the ground troops. Okay, we're going to get into it. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 26. And Yahweh said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. Verse 27, so Yahweh created man in his own image. In the image of Yahweh created he him. Male and female created he them. All right, let's get Hebrews 13 and 2 on deck. The next video, it was an article, I believe, out of the Daily Mail. And then the New York Times picked it up. The interesting part about it, you didn't hear about it a lot. I heard it once in kind of like passing, and it wasn't put out there day after day after day. Like, put it like this, right? The guy that allegedly stuck the Edomite in the train, right? Stabbed behind her and stuck her in the train. Day after day on, constant rotation. Do you know what I'm saying? Anything that happens, there's things that they don't want to be talked about, like the Edomite that ran into the Mormon church and shot it up. Grand opening, grand closing. You hear about it once, it's gone. Let's move on. Talk about Trump, something else. Okay, so it's not about what they say, it's also what they don't say and how often they say it or don't say it. Okay, so this wasn't talked about a lot, which means going to talk about it. All right. So keep it in mind, the scripture, apparently they found alien DNA. Alien, obviously, that's a term that is used on the planet. But as you read Genesis 1 and 26, created in his image and his likeness. Let's get it.
Who have been abducted. Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. There's been a new study released that states that alien DNA is being found in some humans, actually people who claim to have been abducted by aliens in the past. And so now it seems that now scientifically we might be able to prove that these aliens are manipulating our DNA. Now, this actually is different from, in my mind, what this study claims. I mean, this would be different than what I thought was going on in the past, because basically these are regular people. Apparently, their DNA has been manipulated somehow and there's alien DNA inserted into it. If this study turns out to be correct, even the guy who heads the study said this is inconclusive at this point. It still needs to be peer reviewed. So I guess we'll see as time goes on. But there was an article in the Daily Mail about it. We'll get into that in a second. But I think that this is different. Like David M. Jacobs, he's been someone who has written books about this, about the alien abduction and hybridization program, right? And in these books, it's he doesn't talk about this, about people who are abductees getting their DNA changed. What he's talking about in his books, like Walking Among Us and The Threat, he's talking about how these beings are creating these hybrids using sperm from men and the eggs from females. They mix it with alien DNA. They impregnate a female unknowingly. She's impregnated for a couple of months, and then they bring her back in. They abduct her again, and they remove the fetus, and then they take care of it from there, and it grows into a half alien, half human being. And apparently now some of these, according to Jacob's research, some of these are, he calls them hybrids, because you wouldn't be able to tell the difference, right? They
Can't tell the difference. Now, for men and women watching, you know what I mean? I'm just gonna say women, but men, think about that, right? Think about, have you ever heard of a situation, maybe, somebody you were dealing with, or are dealing with, or whatever, that was pregnant and then, went in to get an ultrasound and they're like, we don't even know where the baby is. Anybody that knows a doctor, gynecologist, something that you can ask them. You know what I mean? Has that ever happened before? Like, yeah, we call that spontaneous, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Spontaneous abortions or something like that. You know what I mean? And, can't find any sign that the woman was pregnant. That does happen. Okay. And he said, what did he say? You cannot tell the difference between them. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 2. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for whereby some have entertained angels unawares. So the idea, in Ezekiel, you know what I mean, having the face of a man, a lion, and all that, Hebrews says that you can't tell the difference between them. We look at Genesis 19, in Sodom and Gomorrah, checking it out, witnessing was the wickedness and ratchetness happening in Sodom and Gomorrah. The angels were fair to look upon, because the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, the men, were like, yo, bring them out. We trying to get down with the angels. You know what I'm saying? So we have that in Genesis. We have another account here in Hebrews. Let's look into it. All right. Who is walking the earth? Who is walking amongst us? What type of abilities do they have? He's going to talk somewhat about that. And I want you to think about it. Telepathy. You think about somebody and then the phone rings. How strange is that? You know what I mean? You might just put it in the back burner, like, I don't even, it happens all the time. Doesn't happen to everybody. Okay. Also, you're sitting in a crowded room and you look and somebody's staring at you, and then they look away real quick, but you could feel them, their energy. You could feel them focusing on you. Not everybody can do that. I'll tell you another thing, right? You hopefully have internal dialogue. You know what I mean? Some people call it the conscious, or you're able to just figure things out through, your own means in your mind. Not everybody has that. Some people don't have an internal dialogue, believe it or not. And it's a significant percentage of people. So they're kind of just going on, with the flow in in the matrix. They see a McDonald's commercial and they say, you know what? I want McDonald's. You know what I mean? Because, and obviously McDonald's knows this. That's why they advertise constantly. The food's terrible and it's not even cheap anymore. So some people don't have that ability to reason within their own mind, have a conscious, you know what I'm saying? And as we play, I'm going to look it up, see what percentage of that people it is. But not everybody's the same. Okay? You might assume that the person next to you, well, they are the same. That happens to everybody, right? Wrong. But let's continue on.
look just like human beings, and then they're placed out into society. And he contends that what's happening is that the female will end up going with a regular old human, who's not alien, doesn't have alien DNA, and have offspring, and then the offspring, creates basically hybrids. So there'll be a cross between a human being and an alien. That's how that's what he presents. That's his hypothesis. But this sounds different to me because this sounds like they've been doing things to the abductees themselves, in addition to using them for hybridization purposes. It seems like they might be actually changing their DNA in the process as well. That's according, if this report is true, I think that's what it's stating, but we'll go through the article and figure it out, I guess. Here's the headline. It says, scientists finds evidence of alien DNA in humans. It says here, scientists claim to have found evidence of alien genetic manipulation in human DNA, with large sections of genes seemingly inserted into people, potentially affecting millions of humans. If confirmed, the discovery could fundamentally alter our understanding of human evolution and the future of the human race, said lead researcher Dr. Max Rempel, the founder and chief executive of the DNA Resonance Research Foundation. Yeah, let's stop there for a second. Yeah, I'm sure it would fundamentally alter our understanding of human evolution if this turns out to be true, won't it? Because that could possibly mean that we've been getting manipulated since for who knows how long, since day one, maybe. We have no clue if that's what they're trying to say here. Anyway, the article continues. It says, the study, which has not yet undergone peer review, analyzed DNA from both ordinary people and self-reported alien abductees. In an examination of 581 complete families from 1,000 Genomes Project, Rempel found large sequences of DNA in 11 families that appeared to match neither parent. These anomalies include a cluster of 348 non-parental genetic variants, some of which were from children born before 1990, ruling out human gene editing technologies such as CRISPR, which only emerged in 2013. So it looks like these people who have manipulated DNA, that shows that they have alien DNA. Maybe what's been going on here is it's been going on since we started doing these kinds of things. So who did it? Obviously, I would say the finger here is pointing to these creatures, these alien beings, this alien presence that's here among us. Up to what, we really can't say. Anyway, continuing here, it says, Rempel cautioned that his findings are preliminary and require more rigorous analysis. No conclusive evidence yet because we need better data sets, which are available only on approval. That takes time and effort, he said. Nevertheless, he believes the implications could be staggering. Humanity may be undergoing genetic transformation. If confirmed, it could be possible to detect which humans carry alien DNA, essentially identifying hybrids, he explained. So the future, if this turns out to be real, if this study is reviewed by his peers and they come to the same conclusions, then maybe we'll be able to figure out who the hybrids are among us by testing them, doing DNA tests.
Okay, so looking at the internal dialogue or the self-talk, it says 30 to 50% of people do not have internal dialogue or self-talk. And you're probably like, wait, what? I sit there in my mind, or I'm gonna do this. Okay, maybe I should do that. Maybe. Some people don't have that. It said all the time. And 5 to 10% don't have it at all. Do you know what I'm saying? So you examining yourself, how your day went, going to bed, thinking about a conversation that you had. Some people don't have that. They're just always on go. They're always in the matrix. Okay? And I'm assuming if you're watching this as an Israelite, you prayed to the Most High through your mind. You know what I'm saying? It's just some things that are going to be revealed in the future that it's going to be hard to grasp. And that's one thing those Edomites were talking about. And Roseanne Barr was talking about in her tweets. She's like, look, man, I could tell you some things that's going to blow your mind. So it's something that we just have to prepare for. Okay? And have an open mind to. Let's continue.
Now, again, this collides somewhat with the hypothesis put forth by people like David Jacobs, because again, he's saying that they've been already out there. These hybrids, these half alien, half humans. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. They're already living among us, and they're having babies with just ordinary humans, and then this way that's how it's working. Is that what's going on here? Perhaps. And I mean, if it is, it just raises a lot of questions because, say, where does a hybrid, for instance, if you did a family tree on a hybrid, how would you know where they came from? I mean, it would have to they were plugged into our society somehow, unknowingly to us, and they have a phony history set up for them too. I mean, how would that work? Are the aliens did they think about this when they were establishing this program? There's a lot of different questions that come to mind here. Are these abductees having their DNA manipulated on top of being part of this hybridization program, or is it all the same thing somehow? I guess I'm a little bit confused if this turns out to be real. This was going to raise a lot of other questions, I would have to imagine. Continuing with the article, it says the researchers' hypothesis resonates with fringe theories long circulating among UFO enthusiasts and conspiracy theorists. Some have suggested that alleged alien-human hybrids exist, citing examples such as the so-called Nazca mummies, which purportedly contain both human and alien DNA. Rempel's findings, while not conclusive, could lend scientific credence to these theories if validated. However, both NASA and the United States Pentagon have admitted that alien life does not exist. Oh, NASA and the Pentagon. Oh, they've admitted. Oh, yeah. I guess they're under a lot of pressure. Okay, we'll tell you. Yeah, there's no such thing as aliens. We have no proof of it. Okay, yeah, we just supposed to believe that. Come on, we all know that they're lying, right? We all know it. Anyway, continuing, it says, in addition to analyzing publicly available family DNA data sets, Rempel reviewed 23andMe results from individuals who self-identify as alien abductees. He found that some families showed strings of non-parental markers, though others did not. Rempel noted that current commercial genotyping services, which rely on array-based data, are insufficiently precise to confirm such radical claims. Instead, he advocates for next generation sequencing, or NGS, or whole genome sequencing, or WGS, which can detect novel variants with much higher resolution. According to Rempel, if he can access DNA from parents and children who self-report as alien abductees, high-resolution sequencing could definitively identify alien insertions. Let me just stop here again. And what does it mean? What happens? Okay, say that this is real, right? What happens if we discover that, okay, that there's some people here living among us, millions upon millions of people living among us that have alien DNA in their system, their makeup, right? Their genes it's a combination of human and alien. What does that mean? It means I guess that means we just move forward and we're being taken over slowly. We're being absorbed slowly, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you spitting, Esau, you know. That guy knows something, huh? So, let's like Wisdom of Solomon, the second chapter, Esau, the wicked, they're just going through life. Like, man, ain't nothing, this doesn't matter, when you die, you're just dead, you know what I mean? Let me just do everything, steal everything, smell the roses, sip the good wine, and never sacrifice, no, you know what I mean, never help anybody, that wicked mind state. A lot of people have that, and if you ever question, like, why are these people like that? That's how they are, they were made that way. Okay. You, on the other hand, have dialogue, internal dialogue with your heavenly Father. You know what I'm saying? You pray without ceasing. Um, your telepathy your telepathy game is increasing. You know what I'm saying? You're not just putting a whole bunch of poison in your body. Your mind is growing. You know what I'm saying? You be having blueberries, of course, if you're not allergic to them. Blueberries helping your brain, and hemp seeds, and not just smoking the reefer, and you know what I mean, sipping 24/7. You know what I mean? You start noticing, like, I got my intuitions piling up. You know what I'm saying? I'm reading the scriptures, uh, meditating. You know what I mean? And your brain's getting stronger. That's the move. Okay. So with that in mind, we're going to get a little bit deeper. Okay. Because the so-called alien abduction, right? We're going to look into that, right? We're going to talk about it. And we're not even going to talk about Esau. we're going to talk about Jake. Happens to Jake. Jake, we don't, of course, Jake would never say that and bring that up because, oh my goodness, you're going to be the laughing stock of the hood. Everybody's going to make fun of you. Oh, there's the alien guy. You know what I mean? There's the alien girl. You beam me up, Scotty. You know what I mean? Because Jake is simple and Jake, Jake will make fun of you for doing things, normal things like, ha, you take care of your children. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's Jake, man. You know what I'm saying? Not saying everybody, but, it was a skit. Like, it's a skit that he like, this nigga watches. This guy goes to the movies. Ha ha. It doesn't matter what you're doing. They're gonna make fun of you. You know what I'm saying? It just is what it is. We bid, we burn, you know what I mean? Play the dozens, whatever you want to call it. Okay. But in this situation, the guy compiled a whole bunch of interactions with Israelites and angels. Okay. And we're going to watch that. Let's get Isaiah 48 and verse 6. Scriptures talk about, the Most High will try you at every moment, visit you every morning, try you every moment. Also talks about the Lord will, pretty much give you information at night, you know what I'm saying? Through dreams, through interactions, so forth and so on. And we about to talk about it. All right. Isaiah chapter 48, verse 6. Thou hast heard, see all this, and will not ye declare it? I have showed thee new things from this time, even hidden things, and thou didst not know them. Verse 7. They are created now, and not from the beginning, even before the day when thou heardest them not. Least thou shouldest say, behold, I knew them. Oh yeah, I knew that. You know what I'm saying? Oh man, you just hearing about that? You know how Jake is. Oh man, I've been knew that, man. I knew that when I was born. I was like 2 days old when I heard that. Most I said we ain't doing that. You know what I mean? The things that some things we're gonna learn is gonna be new. Okay. And let's go to 1 Corinthians 8 and verse 2. And that's why I named this class Everybody is Stupid But Me. You know what I'm saying? Because it has to be a level of humility we all have to embrace, that we don't know everything and we're going to learn some new things. You know what I'm saying? And for the most part, what we're doing now, as you see, reading about Genesis, the Lord making us, the Most High making us, we're going to read abduction scenarios in the scriptures. You know what I mean? So it's stuff that our ancestors knew, but 400 years, it's something that's on our mind. You know what I mean? What we're going to talk about it. Okay. 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 2. And if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing yet as he ought to know. So, got to be humble in this thing. Okay. Now let's go to so-called black folks. Oh, Slocky, I messed up. So-called black folks interactions with the chariots.
What's important to me is that I think people understand is that our planet is one that's filled with such fear. We have fear of everything. And this is a focal point for fear. When you're dealing with someone coming in through your walls and taking you out of your bedroom to a strange spacecraft and doing things to your body, it makes you want to go inside and to understand, what is this place? Who are we? Why are we here? What is this happening? Why do some people see the spaceship and others don't? I don't know why. I really think it has to do with us going inside and saying that there's something more going in here than what meets the eye. And we have to go inside ourselves to understand what's going on. There's a self-exploration here that will open up one to other dimensions, other realities, and other possibilities. This place is not about money markets, picket fence, getting a car, and getting the best job. There's a lot more going on here than meets the eye.
I asked them, why were they gathering eggs and this, and they told me they were making a hybrid race.
And for what, okay.
They didn't want, I wanted to know for what, but they never gave an inkling of what it was for, or what this hybrid race would be doing, where it would be, or what. My grandfather died in 1940. So this was in the 1930s when these things were happening with them. She said they would be sitting on the side porch at night and they would see lights over the oil wells. And a lot of times they would see what they thought were little children dressed in white running around the oil wells. And on several times they saw it in the daytime. They would see these little children dressed in white. And once or twice they got up to go see if they could catch the little children and find out who they were. And they would start out, but by the time they would get there, the children would be gone. To me, they don't seem to understand emotions, because if they had, they would know that women just don't just have sex just to be, with no feelings. So no matter what they could have conjured up or shammed, it still felt like rape. And I don't think they have a concept of that. Their main concept was creating a hybrid breed. At least that's what they told me. That they were trying to create a race of people that could live in our atmosphere and in their atmosphere. And they had not yet produced that person. Now, on another occasion, I remembered being shown a baby that really favored my grandson a lot. If you would, give it the slant eyes, they weren't as big as their eyes, but it looked human. And I knew that this was my child, and I wanted to take that child with me, but they said that it would not be able to live in this atmosphere. Well, I know that it was physical, because if I did not get out of that car, where did I get all that dirt that was up to here on me? If I just stepped out of the car and looked up, because we were on pavement. So it's no way that I could have got that much dirt on me just standing outside a car on the street looking. And that's the first thing that let me know that it was real.
And keep in mind, right? Like what the Edomite was talking about, David M. Jacobs, right? He's a professor, former professor in Temple University, that he says like probably 70 to 80% of what they would consider alien abductions, right? Alien abductees, people that go up in the chariots, don't even realize that they are alien abductees. You know what I'm saying? There are telltale signs. You might, whatever, a stretch of road that you don't like to go down, you get anxiety, your stomach gets all in knots. I don't like to go around there. I don't know why. You know what I mean? Somebody asks you why, you're like, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Because just like, art imitating life, you have the Men in Black and they put that thing in front of your face and you don't remember anything. Same situation. I don't know about a flash or anything like that, but people come back and they don't realize what happened to them. You know what I'm saying? Some people have to go through hypnosis, right? Or not have to, but they go through hypnosis, and the person calms them down, relax. Where were you at this date? And ask them questions, and then they, it's still in your brain, but for the most part, it's a clandestine what's the word? A clandestine situation. I'll just go with situation. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not meant for a lot of people to remember. So people wake up with marks on them, like she said. I had dirt on me. Can you imagine going to sleep? You take a shower, you get, put on your pajamas and everything. You wake up and there's dirt on the bottom of your feet. You know what I'm saying? Or you got a cut on you or something. Like, what did I do last night? You know, might be blood on your pillow. You know, you wake up and your nose is bleeding. You know, you wake up, you got a headache. I don't know what happened. You wake up, you felt like you got no sleep the night before, even though you went to sleep at a decent hour. Like, oh, I was tossing and turning all night. You might not have been. You might have been in a chariot. Okay. So, got to kind of keep that in mind. And that might spark some people imagination. Like, dang, I remember I did go to sleep in my bed and then I woke up. I was on the couch. How did I get down there? I wasn't drinking last night. I wasn't smoking the ooh wee. I don't know what happened. Do you know what I'm saying? That happened when I was 5 years old, 6 years old. You know, some people end up being on the outside of their house and they're like, oh, I guess I was sleepwalking. I mean, not saying you can't be sleepwalking, but if you're watching me right now, it's a possibility that you weren't sleepwalking. All right, let's continue on.
And beside this knot, which might be, you could say that it could be anything. The bruises are real. Nobody is beating me up in my sleep. Because if anybody hit me that hard, I would wake up. And the places where I have the bruises, I couldn't give them to myself. And like I said, if I bumped into something that hard, I would certainly remember it. So it's real to me. It's not really a frightening experience. It's just, it happens and it doesn't leave you frightened. I think the thing that frightened me the most was that I was not consciously aware of what had happened. And I did not know what to put these ships with. I didn't have anything concrete to say, well, they're coming to do this or that. I just had the frightening feeling. And after I found out what had happened, I was at peace with what had happened, knowing that there's nothing that I can do about it, because I cannot stop them. Nobody can stop them from doing what they want to do. Nobody on this earth, because they are too far advanced mentally and technologically for, we don't have a defense at all.
It's like they do magic.
Yeah, they could come in today and take over if that was their desire. But like I said, I don't feel it's their desire to take over through violence, and they don't care about governments. See, government control is not their thing. They want bodies, and they want minds that are going to do what they want the minds to do, but they need the bodies to do whatever it is with. And that's where we come in.
My daughter was going to the icebox refrigerator to get some milk for the baby. She notices two bright lights, like spotlights, and then they converge into one big brown ball, illuminate the whole area. With the trees swaying and well, it almost blind me because I couldn't look directly because it's too bright, like an eclipse. That's what I took it to see. So I looked at it on an angle, you might say. You see. And then two, the trees were swaying. Then we heard outside this thrashing go around the tree. And so I got kind of shook naturally. So I went got my guns. I loaded them and my daughter ran, locked the door. Something did snap in my mind though, not to shoot. Because it's a rule, anytime I heard anything outside at night, first thing I would do is get my flashlight and a gun. I don't care what it is. I'll go outside and start searching. But something clicked in my mind. I said, don't go outside. Don't go outside. And I stepped the guns there on top of the deep freeze and just looked out the window and just observed the best I could. You have to see it yourself to really have an idea what I'm talking about. Because nothing I know of turns its colors, all different colors, beautiful colors, and do a 90-degree angle without making a sound and hover there in space. And you sit there and look and all, oh, I said, man, it's pretty. But yet you was frightened because you were dealing with something that you never seen before. You had no idea. You see, you didn't know what it was going to do any harm or what.
Members of the Richards family weren't the only ones affected by the presence of the strange craft.
And the doghouse out there on that side. And them dogs scurry up under the building and stayed till the whole event was over. They didn't bark at all. No, sirree.
With a feeling of relief, Richards watched as the light dimmed somewhat and began to ease away. But suddenly, it made a sharp turn and approached the trailer again.
When it came back up the second time, I felt like death was at hand. I figured this was it. As soon as it touched down, then the whole area just lit up.
Now, how many times can we look in the scriptures where ancestors said that? And the angels got to be like, look, I'm not coming for that, all right? I'm coming for a message. You know what I'm saying? It's all right, relax. It's just for a message. You know what I mean? Samson's parents are like, yo, we just seen God. We're done. They're like, well, why would he allow us to sacrifice for him if he was going to kill us and give us this information? Do you know what I'm saying? So he was rightfully in that feeling, like fear God and keep the commandments. Do you know what I'm saying? And also we're going to, at the end of this, it's going to talk about Barney Hill. Ironically, he's from Philadelphia, but moved up with an Edomite woman in, I think, New Hampshire or something like that, right? When you're going to hear his story and everything, but wasn't long after that he died. He had ulcers. His body started shutting down. And that's important to remember, that we're being watched. And if we're living in sin like he was, dealing with the Edomite woman, Deuteronomy 7 verse 3, you know what I'm saying? Don't mess with them. Get a woman for your own nation. When he was called onto the carpet, he was found wanting. And from the rest of the time you hear his voice, I don't know how many years it was. I think 61 is when his incident happened. And I think around like 63 is when he started like probing into it. By that time, he had ulcers. He was messed up. But he went, through hypnosis and found out what happened to him and everything. Like less than 5 years after that, he was dead. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's deadly serious. People be looking at, wow, look at the beautiful chariot, that beautiful chariot. Look at all those beautiful colors. If you went out right with God and you're not following these law, statutes, commandments, that could be all she wrote. All right, let's keep going.
You was actually blind, you see, but you could hear the flash and walk around this particular tree. Just this one tree now. Then my daughter said, look at the tree, just pulling on the tree, and then next thing you heard the tree snap, that limb snap. I tried to call for help. This time my lights went completely out, came back on. She couldn't call out. Telephone line was dead.
That's another telltale sign. You ever have a blackout? You know what I'm saying? All your lights go out. Sometimes it's an energy issue. You know what I mean? Wherever you're at, maybe the energy sector is not up to par right now or something like that. But in many situations, if you have something kind of strange happen and all the lights go out, or the lights go out and something strange happen, they're right there. You know what I'm saying? So think about the fear factor in that. Phone not working. The phone just keeps doing the loading, John. Like, you're like, that, my phone not working. It must be the Wi-Fi might be out or whatever like that. I don't know. You know what I mean? That's not that. I'm not going to go with that one. I'm going to go with you're being visited at that time. Okay. And people ask, like, how come you don't get it on film? And you know what I mean? This, that, and the third. You put your phone up there and it's just blurry. Any other time your phone's fine. You trying to film them, it's blurry. Okay. Unless they want to be seen, they're not going to be seen. Okay. And then some people are just so fascinated looking at it, they don't even think to pick out the phone. They're frozen, literally paralyzed, can't move. That happens as well.
Didn't hear a buzz tone or anything. Couldn't nobody call in, I couldn't call out, just complete like your wires were cut until they left. I had my first sightings back in 1973 while I lived on Charleston Air Force Base. We had a flap that lasted for about a period of a week, where we had numerous sightings. There were multiple sightings where you had 3 to, I would say, up to 9 crafts in that area, mainly over the Charleston river basin.
Yeah.
It was a circular type object that had a dome on top. It had lights that were revolving in a counterclockwise rotation. I can even remember, I think it was a football game they had on the base. And, you know, I don't know how true this is. I heard it from quite a few different people. They said a saucer-shaped object came over the football field, hovered above the game for a period of 5 or 10 seconds, and then just shot off towards the Ashley River area again. When was that? This was right back, I guess it was during 73, 74, right around that same period of time. You know, when we were having quite a few UFO sightings in the area. Which area the most frequently you have observed it? Okay, it's always been associated right around the Ashley River area. From Somerville, I'd say up as far as the end of Dorchester Road. So it seems like most of the sightings are associated right around a military type installation and also around the Ashley River area. Yeah. There have been numerous sightings, particularly right around in this area. There's been a few at the Bonneville Nuclear Plant, Naval Weapons Station, the Navy base, quite a few right around the Air Force Base. So it seems like whoever or whatever we're dealing with, they tend to, you know, want to know something about our military. We passed the Kings Grant area on Dorchester Road, and you've got a column of, you know, it's like a wooded area. You've got woods on both sides of the road. It seems like it just hit us at the same time to look up. On my car, all the windows are tinted in my car. I've got a band across the front windshield that is, you know, blackened out. And you can only see at night. It's real hard to see out of any of the windows unless you see something that's coming directly in front of you. Okay, I'd say the object appeared at an altitude of probably about 500, no more than 1,000 feet up. Is when I first saw it, and it was anywhere from an 1/8 to a 1/4 mile in front of us. It came down, I'd say, at about a 70-degree angle. Okay, it came from an easterly direction, came down. And what I really noticed about that was strange. Bill said, look, he said, it's doing triangular patterns. That's what it was doing. It was a glowing object. It's doing triangular patterns through the sky. It came down at about a 70-degree angle. It made a loop, you know, probably about, I'd say about 100 feet above treetop level. Yeah. Came down, made a loop, and went back up at the same type angle. And I thought it was really strange that you know, they would come down and they could only be seen directly in front of us. Okay, and I didn't think there was any mistaking, you know, of it being the object because of what he had told me about the object doing triangular patterns. So we saw that. We went a little bit farther down Dorchester Road, and we turned into another subdivision called Forest Hills. We went back in that area, and you've got the Ashley River area. It's marshy. Right. We went behind a house there, and we just stood around. You know, he just had an impulse to turn there. We went back there, and we stood around, and it was like someone cut on a light bulb out in the far distance. Just saw a bright flash, and then went back out. And you know, I thought about it. It could have been the object. It may not have been. I took into account quite a few different things. I noticed that just prior to seeing the object, we had a C-141 fly overhead, and it was heading towards the base. You know, you could tell the size of it, the lighting, you know, things like that. You can usually tell, you know, what type of object you have in the sky. I've been around military objects for quite a period of time. I've lived on military installations all my life. So I've seen, you know, what flies and what doesn't. And I've never seen anything like that.
I was abducted just about a year ago.
So, and keep in mind, right, with this guy, we're going to listen to his account. But if you see a chariot it is a strong possibility you were just on that chariot and you just don't remember. Do you know what I'm saying? And that might be hard to grasp, but it's a fact. What the last person we're going to watch with Barney Hill, his mind is, I see it and I'm driving, uh, and I get home and I'm home hour, 2 hours later than what I was supposed to, a half hour than what I was supposed to. You know what I mean? Like, dang, it took that long. Normally, it takes me an hour to get from point A to point B. Now it's 2 hours, hour and a half longer. What happened? Um, that is a fact. Okay, let's get Ezekiel chapter 8 and verse 3. So you're seeing the chariot that you were just on. Okay, strong possibility with that. Okay, you don't just see them and they're just saying hi and all that. Nah, they just dropped you back off and you're seeing it leave. Okay. Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 3. And he put forth the form of a hand and took me by the lock of mine head. And the spirit lifted me, and the spirit lifted me up between the earth and the heaven and brought me in the visions of Yahweh to Jerusalem, to the door, mute your phone, to the door of the inner gate that looketh toward the north, where was the seat of the image of jealousy, which provoketh to jealousy. So that right there is a description of what he's about to bring out, a so-called alien abduction.
Last July, I was on a camping trip up near Reno, Nevada, alone. I was camping alone and had gone into the city of Reno to try to make some money. And as I approached my car, it was around 11:30 at night, as I approached my car, just parked on the street, a group of people, a cluster of people, was walking toward me. And as I got just about up to my car, I could tell that these people were walking in unison. I thought that was a bit unusual. And I began slowing down. And they were about approximately 15 feet away. I realized that these were not real people. And at that point, I said, run. And of course, at that point, I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. It was circular. I just remember compartments. I remember them shuffling me from rooms to rooms. I remember them laying on a bed, and there they were doing an operation on me. And I remember this lady who's been in my life apparently for quite some time. She was standing to my left, and there were two men. They were men. For some reason, I knew that they were men, doctors. I would imagine they were operating on me, and she kept telling me to look into my eyes, and everything will be okay. If you could, the day after, remember everything that they did to you, you might wind up committing suicide or taking a leap off of a bridge, and maybe by slowly filtering out through hypnosis. It's like taking a safety lid off very, 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 very slowly, instead of just ripping it off and letting it, take off. I'd like to.
And that's very important. You know what I'm saying? Like, why would they not want you to remember? Because it's so foreign, it's so far beyond our realm of comprehension that, like he said, if you remember everything that happened that day, if it's not given to you in increments, you know what I'm saying? Like, at one point in time, you might have thought there's no such thing as UFOs. That's just weird stuff that's on, science fiction. Then slowly you're like, oh, chariots, that's in the Bible. Oh, okay, yeah, and they look like us. Okay. Oh, I might have been on one. Okay. I mean, it's like little by little till you realize that, it's a lot deeper than you can imagine. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's important, I think, that's why I'm doing this class. It's important, I think, to have that open mind state, before a catastrophic disclosure happens and you don't know how to take it. You know what I'm saying? You're running around like a chicken with your head cut off and you're like, oh, why? I don't know. You know what I mean? But it's like, okay, I heard about this. Okay, all right. Oh, this was happening. Okay, all right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it ties in with the scriptures. All right, makes sense. You know, as opposed to like that the day that the sky cracks open and people aren't prepared for it, never even thought about it, never looked twice. There was always looking at their bank account and their bank book and the Louis Vuitton bags and stuff like that. And then something like this happens that now, like what these people know in this room right there, it's probably like an alien abduction group. What they know, everybody's going to know, but everybody's going to know at the exact same time, which is going to be chaos. Okay. David Jacobs put somebody under hypnosis, and come to find out they have a job to do. Their job is when everything's going crazy and there's fires everywhere and chaos, they're going to be pointing people to the chariot, like keep going straight, go down to the corner and take a left. Keep going, calm down, it's okay, go down the corner, take a left. That's their entire job. And that's why they bring them up on the chariots to teach them that. You know what I mean? And the reason why they know that is because he puts them under hypnosis. So there's other, you're given instructions, you might not remember them. So it's a large possibility you're not even going to remember your instructions until boom, it kicks in. And I'll take it back to one of the first videos when it's talking about the DNA manipulation. You know what I mean? It's hidden DNA strands in us. Notice I said us. All right, let's continue.
The scientific community to begin to seriously study this phenomenon. Many of them have been intimidated because they're afraid of being ridiculed for studying a quack field, as it's been labeled sometimes. I think it's because it's only through our scientists getting involved and that we're ever going to get to the bottom of it. I think, really. I mean, it's gone on too long where they just totally ignore all this hard evidence. People with marks, people who have all kinds of problems. I think it's time that they stop playing games and got involved to help us because we need it. I think it's important that people accept an abduction for what it is. Because I have met people at various UFO symposiums and things who deny the fact that they were abducted, even though all the telltale signs, you can read them off. They may say this, they may say that, but they go through denial. So they have to want the help. And that only begins by accepting what has happened to you.
Can we deny an abduction and be a contactee?
I don't know. But that's where it has to start. They have to accept what has happened to them, and then they can move on to get some help.
I remember briefly they were 8 feet tall. They had black robes and they had hoods on, but I never saw their faces. But I do remember that they grabbed me by my arms with these like spider-like fingers, and they escorted me to the ship. And they held me firm and they let me know that I wasn't going to be able to get away if I wanted to. It was more like I had to go. It was my turn. And they told me it was my turn, and I was afraid. I was very afraid. I think the hypnosis session, when I took it several months after I was abducted, at the time I didn't even believe it myself. But after hypnosis helped me relax more and understand myself.
These beings are here. They're here. They're just sitting right up there.
We met up with Prophet Yahweh, seer of Yahweh, at Doolittle Park off Lake Mead. We picked the day, we picked the time, and we picked the location.
Everyone's going to think you're absolutely nuts. Well, I thought I was absolutely nuts.
Until he says he saw UFOs. Over the years, 1,500 of them.
Can we make it 1,501 today? What do you think? I'll try it.
He says the voice in his head told him to go public now. So we took him up on his offer and we scanned the skies. Nothing but...
So the voice in his head, okay? That inner dialogue, that talk, that able to tap into that frequency. Not everybody can do it. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody wants to do it. I'll start there. Not everybody wants to do it. You know what I mean? But you can't keep destroying your body and through drugs and alcohol and ask and try to think, why can't I do this? You know what I'm saying? And then think other people can't do it because you can't do it. But you ain't even trying. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we, of course, be humble, right? These things are happening, they're going on, they have been going on. And you could go into the scriptures to see that, and currently look at what's going on to see it as well.
But a few clouds. When the prophet started praying for a sighting, I wasn't exactly convinced.
I pray, O Yahweh, that you send a sighting so that they know that I am not mentally ill. I am not a false prophet like those who seek to kill me say I am.
I see something straight up.
Oh, brother, look here, there it is.
You can barely see it, a white speck. Then another sighting.
There it is. I got it.
Photojournalist Jonathan Hawkins locks in on it. Let's take a closer look here. It's an orange sphere that appeared out of nowhere. I call the boss with an unexpected change in my story. I can see it clear as day. In fact, it's bright.
I can't believe this.
It's moving pretty fast.
It's going to Nellis Air Force Base. It wants to be seen.
We called Nellis to see what these things might be. Guess what? They didn't call us back. But this thing started coming back toward us.
Yeah.
Coming toward us now, I think.
What?
See, it's coming up toward us.
Whoa, man! Oh, hallelujah!
Then, a few seconds later, it disappeared.
It's going back up in space.
Prophet Yahweh isn't concerned. He says it'll be back.
In 1961, Tuesday, the 19th of September, and my wife and I were returning from from Canada to New Hampshire. We were driving along Route 3, and it was approximately 11 o'clock at night in the evening when we saw what looked like a bright star in the heavens. It was the brightest star up there, and it was very clear night. So my wife remarked, I was driving the car, and she remarked that the star had begun to move. So this caused me to look through the windshield up toward the sky, and I told her that it was probably a satellite. Nothing to get alarmed about. We did have a pair of 7x50 crescent binoculars with us. So I stopped the car, and we got out, and she took the binoculars and was looking at the object, and I reached under the seat to get our little doggie, a little dachshund, and put the chain on her to walk her about while my wife was looking at the object. And she then passed the binoculars to me and said, well, you must really look at this satellite because it's not behaving as we would expect a satellite to behave like. Well, I took the binoculars from her, and I too began looking. And surprisingly, this, what I thought was a star and a satellite, began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed. I was standing, to give a picture, I was standing facing the west, which would have been toward Vermont. And the object was coming from my left, which would have been to the south of me. And as it passed my right shoulder, it was quite a distance out. It made a left turn, completing the turn, and coming in toward me. Well, this caused me to become quite alarmed. And I told my wife, well, apparently it is not a satellite, it must be a passenger plane, and they obviously are looking at us, and I thought that the pilot was having fun, that he could easily see our car with the dome light on. We had not passed any traffic that evening, going or coming in either direction. So I felt a bit uncomfortable to see this, what I thought was a plane, come in our direction, so I returned to the car, and so did she, and we drove down the highway. We continued driving south, and my wife would occasionally remark that this object was still following us. It was flying in a very erratic pattern, and she wanted me to stop, and I would occasionally and look over and toward her side, and I could see that this light was still out there moving about. It would go up, and then it would come down at very rapid and odd patterns of flight. Well, then I thought it was probably a military craft, and I was thinking of the hot rod type flyer, and apparently they were having fun with us. These are the thoughts that were going on in my mind because I had not at any time ever given any thought to UFOs. You might say that I was a bit cynical about the entire idea concerning unidentified flying objects. Well, this continued on for several miles as we would travel and stop and look and then continue to travel again. And finally, my wife became very upset. She said, I must stop the car again. Look, right overhead. And I looked through the window off to the right on the passenger side of the car, and this object now was very extremely close, and it was moving backwards. And what I failed to mention is when we saw the object off in a great distance, it appeared to be winking, but now that it was close, it looked as if there was just one solid band of light, and this was moving backwards. And I had slowed the car down to approximately 5 miles an hour. Well, this was very upsetting, so I came to a complete stop in the center of the highway. I got out of the car, and I took the binoculars. I rested my left arm on the door that was open of the car door, and my right elbow on the roof of the car, and I tried to look, but the motor was running, so I had to step away. As I stepped away from the car, the object swung from the passenger side over to the left, which would have been the side that I was driving, and making a large arc-like turn, placing it over a field. Well, this was very alarming to me, and I began walking across the highway, looking up at the object with the binoculars, putting them down, shaking my head, saying, well, this just can't be true. I don't believe it. And I continued to walk until I was about, I would say approximately 100 feet in this field, across this field, and the object was just above me. And this, while looking with the binoculars, I could see what I thought was approximately 9 to 11 men. I would describe them. I would say that they were men. There was nothing grotesque about them. Looking back at me, looking down through this plate of glass, a series of windows toward me. So I then was quite alarmed, but of the group that was looking, they all turned to the back that was facing the back of them. There was a panel. It looked as if it was a panel. They began pulling levers. Only one object continued to stare from the window down toward me. And I then saw 2 red lights on the side of the craft, which seemed to be the extension of a wing, fan-type wing, I would describe it. Not a conventional wing that we associate with airplanes, but more of a fan-type thing, moving away from the side of this object, which had the shape of the so-called flying saucer. Well, this was too much for me, and I made a hasty retreat to the car, screaming to the wife that they had seen me, they had seen us, and we had to get away. And this was the extent of the sighting, which I found very distressing and very difficult to believe.
Mr. Hill, did you report this to anyone?
Yes, we did. After we arrived home in Portsmouth, well, we decided we wouldn't mention this to anyone, that it was too ridiculous, too absurd for us to believe. Yet we knew we had seen something that was strange to us. I suppose we can both tell what a plane looked like, and I failed to mention that there was the absence of any sound. There was absolutely no sound associated with this object. It must have at the time been approximately 100 feet up above my head. This would be about 10 stories up. The size of it was about approximately, if you were looking at a large military plane or at any commercial airliner from tail to head, this is the size of it as the series of windows were around it. This is how huge it was. When we arrived in Portsmouth, we decided not to tell anyone, but my wife decided she would tell her sister. Well, she called her sister, and she said, well, hang up. She was going to call a friend of hers that is a physicist and ask what he knows about these things. So she called us, and her sister called us back to tell us that the physicist had suggested that we go out and see if there was any radioactivity around, anything unusual about the car, if we had a compass to take it with us. Well, this was too much for me. I told my wife that as far as I was concerned, I wanted to forget the whole thing. And so she said, well, where's the compass? And I told her, well, I don't know. I put it somewhere. And she said, well, where's the compass? I said, oh, geez, if you're going to keep this up, I'll smash the compass. And she said, well, if you do, I'll go out and buy another one. And so she found the compass, she went out, came back in to the house very excited, and insisted on me going out and looking at her car, We were using her car at the time. Well, on the trunk of her car, there were these large, shiny spots about the size of a silver dollar. There must have been approximately 20 of these spots, not in any particular pattern, but just these spots on the trunk. After having traveled the distance we had, the car was quite dusty, but these spots were very, very highly shiny. And wherever she would put the compass near these spots, the compass would spin. But if she placed the compass close to any of the areas where the spots weren't located, surprisingly, the compass then would tilt downward toward the middle of the car. Well, I thought this was a bit unusual because I did try to say, well, and any time you take a compass and place it around any metal, particularly like a car with a battery, it will attract a magnet to it. But the fact that the compass would spin only in the area where the spot was located, I thought was a bit unusual. And then this is when my wife decided, well, we should notify someone, and we thought of notifying the military base located in this area.
Briefly, what was their reaction to this?
It was curious and interesting. I didn't want any parts of it. I told my wife that she could go ahead and contact them and leave me out of it. But while talking to her, then they asked for me to give my account of it. And this drew me into the conversation. So I also talked to a major, and he then explained to me that the conversation was going to be monitored, and that I was to hold on, and the conversation was not going to take place at this particular military establishment, but elsewhere, but he did not designate where. So I held on for a few minutes, brief minutes, and then another voice came on telling me to tell all that I had seen and give an account, a full account and description of this thing that I had seen.
And have you heard from them since that time?
This was on, well, they called back the following morning about 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning. I thought what this officer had to say was very interesting. He did not elaborate on why he said this, but he said he'd been up all night working on the description of the wings of this and the two red lights. And that could I give any more information? Well, I had given him all the information I could at the time about it, and that was the extent of the contact we had with the military, with the Air Force.
To describe those people or things you saw at the window.
To give a description of them?
Yes.
Yes. Well, there was nothing unusual about them. They did have on what I thought was a black type shiny uniform, similar to the kind you find motorcyclists wearing, the black leather type jackets and whatnot. And the one that I will now just for identifying purposes call a leader, well, he had on a military type cap with the visor, while the others did not. And they moved back to the window, away from the window, while this one with the black leather type uniform, I will say uniform, continued to look down at me.
I think you indicated earlier that they were pretty human looking, weren't
Yes,
they?
and you have to consider that looking at anyone in a window 10 stories up with a binocular, the only thing you can discern is that they look human and nothing grotesque about them.
No, this is Wes Fitch. Did you feel there was anything sinister about these people? Did you get that impression?
Yes, I did. Only that it was a strange situation, and therefore I have thought of this many times. That is to say, was there anything sinister about them, or was it because of the unusual situation that I was in, magnifying my feelings? I did feel that there was something sinister, strange, unusual about the whole thing.
Do you feel that those thoughts had anything to do with that beeping sound that followed your car?
I failed to mention that, didn't I? When I returned to the car when we were up in the mountains, when I mentioned to my wife that, oh my God, I said, they are looking at us and they have seen us and they're coming after us. When I returned to the car, there was a series of beeps. These beeps were very peculiar because it was much like a tuning fork being struck and placed against you, a very subtle type vibration. And that's the way the car vibrated. And it was beep, 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 beep. And I said to my wife, my God, what is that? I said, look out the window, they're right overhead. and she looked out of the window, but you couldn't see anything. And later we find out that you couldn't see the sky as well. So apparently the craft had moved overhead over us.
Hmm. You think that the metal discs then did have anything to do with that beeping sound?
I do, yes. The thing that has continued to be an enigma, a puzzle to me, is that I said, my God, they're going to capture us. And I have never understood why. I cannot understand why I made that remark, only to have the beeping sound. And then 35 miles further south, we were beeped again, and this is the only time my wife and I then began to communicate with one another by saying, well, what was it we saw? This is surprising because that 35-mile period, we did not discuss anything.
This is Romeo speaking. You didn't have a relaxed feeling at any time, did you?
Yes.
You did.
And I told my wife they were going to capture us, and she looked out of the window, and she said she could not see them, or the object, and then we had the series of beeps. There is just a void, you might say, because we did not, again, mention anything about having seen anything until we were now 35 miles further south, and we saw what we thought was a bright moon. And I said, oh my God, not again. And then we were beeped again, and then from that point, we started talking with one another about, well, what do you think of that? And my wife asked me, well, do you believe in flying saucers now? And I said, oh, don't be silly, of course not.
All right. Let's get Psalm chapter 139, verse 1. Okay, so that was in 1964. He passed away of a cerebral hemorrhage in 1969. Okay, so 5 years after that interview. All right, let's get that Psalm chapter 139. And that's a very well-known case, Betty and Barney Hill in White Mountains, New Hampshire, White Plains, New Hampshire, something to that effect. Psalm chapter 139, O Lord, thou hast searched me and known me. Now, if you listen to David, what he's saying, he understands that the Most High is clearly aware of everything that we do. Okay. Verse 2, thou knowest my downsitting and my uprising. Thou understandest my thought afar off. Thou compassest my path and my lying down, and art acquainted with all my ways. So when the scriptures talk about how the very hairs on our head are numbered, we're being watched at and unbelievable rate. You know what I'm saying? Our thoughts, what we did, what we plan on doing. You know what I mean? This is something that the Most High is very aware of. So it's very, you should follow the law, statutes, commandments to the best of your ability at all times. You know what I mean? You love God, keep his commandments. You know what I'm saying? He said, love thy Lord thy God with all thy heart, mind, and soul, right? Paraphrasing. And love thy neighbor as thyself. Love thy brother as yourself. You know what I'm saying? Because God can see right through you. You know what I'm saying? There's no lying to God. There's no being saying one thing and doing another with the Most High God. It doesn't work that way, and when you do have that, you display that type of energy, there's going to be consequences for that. So it's best to make your election sure in these last days. Okay. Verse 4, for there is not a word in my tongue, but lo, O Lord, thou knowest it altogether. What's that? Make sure you keep your phone on mute. All right. Unless you have something to say, and then Salakia, and we can go from there. Verse 5, thou beset me behind and before, and laid thy hand upon me. And it's interesting when it says laid that hand upon me, because that's pretty much what it says in Ezekiel 8:3. You know what I mean? He put the form of thy hand and took me by the lock of my head. Let's get Bel and the dragon and the Daniel in the Apocrypha. Because it also has what we would consider an abduction experience with Habakkuk. And he says the same thing about laying of the hand. Okay. Okay, Bel and the dragon and the end of Daniel. We're going to read verse 36. Then the angel of the Lord took him by the crown, right, to be his head, and bare him by the hair of his head, and through the venomancy of his spirit set him in Babylon over the den. Okay, so Habakkuk is about to give some food to the workers in his field, and the angel comes and said, "You're gonna give that to Daniel. He's in the lion's den." And he said, he's in Babylon. He's like, "I don't know where that is." Do you know what I'm saying? And he said, "Guess what? I got you." Picked him up from his head, brought him over there. Now let's get that account. It's a very well documented case. 10 tribes was working in a forest, I believe chopping down trees, clearing the forest or whatever like that. We're not gonna watch the whole thing. It's kind of long, but you can get the understanding that they all witnessed, all 14 of them witnessed a chariot pick up an elk. By what? By its head. All right. So let's get that.
The elk weapon.
Bring that up.
Longview, Washington. An elk, adult female elk, lifted out of the forest of the state of Washington before 14 witnesses at about 1 minute before noon. We've reported that. I've had witnesses on multiple radio programs talking about that case.
Told was the crew was out planting trees. About noon, we ripped up and got to the ground and stopped and started doing some maneuvering. Respecting attention to more of the crew members, and they were standing there within 500 yards of how they noticed it was a machine rather than a parachute after a little bit. If they went over, there was a further back and the church was next to them, and it went over. Actually, went over left. And turning into the machine, they said that if then it's like the weight of that thing was almost too much for them. It started wobbling. On the gain altitude, it was moving over towards the edge of the church head, and they thought it was going to crash into the tree, but it stopped, moved back over into the middle of the church head, hovered for a minute, and went out of sight vertical. But the opposite, yeah. Mm-hmm. When did this occur, please? Do you happen to know? The exact date I don't. It was, I believe, Thursday.
I was amused to see Grant Cameron last hour play that advertisement showing the bison being lifted out of his group of 3 by a disc, because virtually the same thing occurred in Washington State back in February of 1999. 14 witnesses. It would stand up in any court of law. 14 witnesses saw a disc move towards a herd of elk and lift one of them out of the forest, fly off with it. We later found that elk. Here are some, Bob Fairfax, who is the current director of investigations for MUFON in the state of Washington. I used to occupy that role. We went out and investigated this case. We found the elk, and what we think was the elk, there was not a wound on it. Ruben Uriarty and Bob followed up with a second investigation, interviewed the forestry workers who had seen this thing, who reported it to us. It was a dramatic case. if anybody's interested in getting more information about it, collar Ruben and ask him to give some more details on what it was that they found there.
So there's a fascinating story. I find this one particularly alarming, Art, and I think our listeners tonight will get a feeling of that. Why don't I start off, Bob, with just a brief introduction of what happened. Maybe you can fill in the blanks, and then we'll play about a 77-second tape of the first report we got about this just about 2 weeks ago.
All right.
But in a nutshell, what happened is this. On Thursday, the 25th of February, 1999, about 2 or 3 minutes before noon, a group of forestry workers in the state of Washington, not far from the Mount St. Helens, which blew its top out here a couple decades ago, three of those workers saw what at first they thought was a parachute drifting over the ridge to the south of them and drifting into the valley of to the north of their location. They were out doing forestry work, which they've done for a decade or decade and a half, many of them in that area. They were astonished by this thing. The first three to see the object quickly called the attention of their co-workers to it, and they watched that object for, they estimate, 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes. And the long and the short of it is that object drifted towards a herd of elk, and it was seen by 14 witnesses, allegedly, to pick one of the adult elk off the ground, pick it up out of the forest, and do a circle with it, and then start rising faster and faster and faster, and it disappeared from their sight to the northeast.
They abducted an elk?
A fully grown adult elk, apparently, and it flew off to the northeast. Apparently the object, and I'm going to let Bob fill in some of the details that I've skipped over here. Apparently the object, after it picked up the elk, started slowly trying to gain altitude, apparently. And as it got higher, this elk apparently got closer and closer to the bottom of the disc. And by the time the object was above the observers, they could no longer see the elk.
It's like it had some kind of tractor beam on the elk. In other words, could they see a beam of anything?
No, they didn't see a beam, and it appeared that the hull may have even come in contact with the top of the head before the elk started disappearing into the bottom of the crack.
Top of the head, you know what I'm saying? Just a couple more minutes on this and we'll move on.
How big was the craft, Bob? The craft wasn't much bigger than the elk. The elk is, we're talking about a 500-pound animal.
Oh, that's pretty big.
Yeah, it stands 4.5 feet at the shoulder and about 6.5 feet from nose to tail.
Now, this is a pretty wild story, folks. Let's go back to the beginning. How many people, pray tell, saw this?
14.
14 witnesses, Art.
14 witnesses.
And we were able to interview 3 of them. And of course, a good investigator is always skeptical.
Yes.
Particularly in a case like this where you're being told just absolutely incredible things. But Bob and I, just a week ago tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, met with 3 of those 14 witnesses. And I'll let Bob speak for his own part, but my impression of the people we met with, the people who were involved with this case, are as sober-minded and modest and soft-spoken, perhaps even self-effacing a group of people as you'll ever run across.
They didn't want any publicity, I take it.
They want absolutely no publicity. That's part of the reason I'm pleased to have 2 of us on this phone tonight describing what happened.
Yes, you were both there.
It is very difficult to believe. If you would permit me, I would like to play about a 77-second.
Okay, so, and you got to keep in mind, like they said, people like, oh, they just want to be famous. They don't even want people to know who they are. You know what I mean? Some investigators that get contacted, people use aliases. You know what I'm saying? They just want to know what happened, what is going on. Let's continue on with Psalm chapter 139, Sakya. Psalm 139, verse 6. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high. I cannot obtain unto it. Some things are just mind-boggling. You know what I'm saying? That's what David was bringing out. Okay. And obviously that is the case in a lot of instances. You know what I mean? the scriptures, the things that happen, we're not supposed to know everything. You know what I mean? But it does say, knowledge will be increased. Okay, so these things are going on, and it might be disclosed through different channels by Esau. I know November, maybe the end of November or something like that, the Age of Disclosure or some type of movie coming on Prime, where you have Marco Rubio saying, yeah, these things like the drones, that now some random company saying, oh, that was us. But Marco Rubio's like, nah, they ain't us. You know what I mean? We didn't know what they were, couldn't track them, didn't know where they started, didn't know where they went. They had no frequencies. If we put up a drone, it will knock down our drones. Anti-drone technology didn't work with them. It just is what it is. They will turn from a white ball like an orb and then turn into this alleged drone and just sit underneath all day long military installations, warships, wherever they wanted to go, and there's nothing anybody could do to stop them. That's what we're talking about here, okay? Let's continue on, okay? Let's talk about what's going on in Chicago. Apparently, Jake is in Walgreens shopping, and ICE comes in, looking for people. He runs out. They tackle him, put his knee on his back, detain him. This is what we talk about when we mean Jacob's trouble. All right, let's get Job chapter 16 and verse 11. Who are you going to call? The cops? They are the cops. You know what I'm saying? And nothing's going to happen to them. So we saw what happened to 10 tribes constantly getting sent to supermax prisons, people that were born here in America, so forth and so on, still get caught up in the dragnet. This is where we're at, okay? It's not where we're going, it's where we're at. All right, so Job chapter 16 and verse 11. Yahweh have delivered me to the ungodly and turned me over to the hands of the wicked. Verse 12. I was at ease, but he have broken me asunder. He have also taken me by my neck and shaken me to pieces and set me up for his mark. You look at Chicago, just a weekend, it seems to be like a war zone, 50 shot, 10 deceased, and it's kind of constantly, you know what I mean? So apparently Most High ain't with it. Put the spirit on Trump to send in the National Guard, to send in ICE agents, and here we are, okay? Let's look at the video of this situation.
Masked ICE agents tackle and kneel on this innocent Black kid. Watch.
He's a citizen! He's a citizen! He's a citizen!
This is the moment federal agents held a 19-year-old man to the ground outside a Chicago convenience store. The video was filmed after a Border Patrol vehicle collided with an SUV during an immigration enforcement operation. The collision sparked a hostile reaction from the nearby crowd. Yoreli Jimenez, who filmed the video, says she saw federal agents chasing occupants of the vehicle into a Walgreens store. Jimenez told CNN she and two others ran into the store to film the incident, but were confronted by agents when they tried to leave. Jimenez and King say he was taken into custody, but released later that day.
So he was assaulted. That's what I saw.
Yep. Let's get Amos chapter 3 and verse 6. Definitely was. You know what I mean? Definitely was. All right. And Esau is the wicked, right? The border of wickedness. And it says in Psalm 17, he is the Most High sword. Okay. So when you start seeing us, Israelite cities being compassed about with these evil entities, evil Edomites, we know who sent the hit. Okay. Amos chapter 3 and verse 6. Shall a trumpet be blown in a city, and the people not be afraid? Shall there be evil in a city, and the Lord have not done it? Of course, the Most High is, he does it all, okay? Let's go to Zechariah chapter 11, verse 5. Let's watch a little bit more of this.
I also heard this agent saying, well, why were you running? I mean, because that's a decent question. The next should be produce your free black papers because you don't have the right to run. Okay. America, look at your life.
All right. Zechariah 11, verse 5. Who possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. And they that sell them say, Blessed be the Lord, for I am rich. And their own shepherds pity them not. For I will no more pity the inhabitants of the land, saith the Lord. But lo, I will deliver the men every one into his neighbor's hand, and into the hand of his king. And they shall smite the land, and out of their hand I will not deliver them. Okay, so we're looking at David Slakia. We're looking at Jacob's trouble. You know what I mean? Just random people, you know, getting searched, some sent to detention camps, some deported, and by the time they get deported, it happened to one I don't know if it was Ephraim or it was the brother from the 10 tribes, maybe Issachar. By the time they deported him and realized that, you know, he was actually a citizen, he's not in the gang and everything, Trump administration is like, whatever, you know, this time period we're living in. Verse 7, I will feed the flock of the slaughter, even you, O poor of the flock. And I took unto me some staves, and I set, it's like it, the one I call beauty, and the other I call bands, and I fed the flock. 3 shepherds also I cut off in 1 month, and my soul loathed them, and their soul also abhorred me. Verse 9, then said I will not feed you. That dieth, let it die. And that is cut off, let it be cut off. And let the rest eat every one the flesh of another. Okay, so it's gonna be a bad job when people are like, all right, let me pray now. All right, let me get it together. Let me follow these law, statutes, commandments. Let me do better. I'll do better now. And you get no response. You know what I mean? Like with Ezekiel 9 and 4, where it talks about, you know, slay utter old and young, you know, don't come to the ones that have the mark, that sigh and that cry for all the abominations thereof, paraphrasing, all the wickedness that goes on. Some people are comfortable. So Most High said that he's going to let them die. Okay. Now let's talk about the other nations. Let's get Amalek involved, right? Let's go to Numbers 24. Amalek got maxed. All right. So judgment is taking place all over the 4 corners. This one happened in New Jersey. A head-on collision, and then got hit by a daggone tractor trailer, man. You know what I'm saying? Just in case you survived, you ain't surviving this. You know what I'm saying? Most High ain't no joke. Let's go to Numbers 24, let me see, and 20. And when I looked on Slakia, when he looked on Amalek, he took up his parable and said, Amalek was the first of the nations, but his latter end shall be that he perish forever. So Amalek got a lot to pay for, so-called what do you call Jewish man, woman, and child, a lot to pay for in these last days. You know what I mean? Let's get Isaiah 14. Let's read some scriptures, then we'll get to the video, okay? Isaiah chapter 14 and verse 21, prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. For I will rise up against them, saith the Lord of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name and remnant and son and nephew, saith the Lord. Yeah, God ain't playing no games. Okay, let's watch the video, and then we'll come back with Deuteronomy 25 and verse 17.
A crash on the New Jersey Turnpike claimed 4 lives over the weekend. Authorities say a pickup truck was driving the wrong way when it slammed into an SUV head-on. 3 of the victims were teenagers from New Jersey. Action News reporter Trish Hartman live for us now in Lakewood, Ocean County, with more from family and friends of those young people. Trish.
Shari, these 4 families are just left devastated after that fatal crash down in Salem County over the weekend. The 4 victims have been identified as Aaron Leibovitz, Shlomo Cohen, Chaim Grossman, all 18 years old, and Yaakov Kilberg, age 19. Now police are asking for the public's help as they continue to investigate.
They were larger than life, tremendous energy.
A community is in mourning after 4 young men were killed in a crash on the New Jersey Turnpike early Sunday morning. State police say 4 teens were in a vehicle driving southbound in Carneys Point Township near the Delaware Memorial Bridge. According to police, 41-year-old Christopher Neff of Colorado was driving a Dodge pickup truck the wrong way on the turnpike and hit the teens head on. After the collision, a Freightliner driving behind the teens struck them too. All 4 died. Police say.
So a head-on collision and they get hit by a tractor trailer. That's, man, listen. You know what I mean? Let's get that in Deuteronomy. The Lord said, he said, look, don't forget what Amalek did. You better keep that in mind. So some people would be like, oh, that's so bad. That's terrible. Oh my gosh. Why? Deuteronomy 25 and verse 17. That's why. Remember what Amalek did unto thee by the way when ye were come forth out of Egypt. You know what I'm saying? What were they doing? How he met thee by the way and smote the hindermost of thee, even all that were feeble behind thee, when thou was faint and weary, and he feared not Yahweh. So the people that were covering up the rear, you know what I mean? Walking, limping, Amalek took them out. You know? And that's it's the same spirit that Amalek has now. He's like, yo, let's fight Hamas. You know, Hamas throws bottle rockets at Amalek. Iran throws guided missiles. They say, all right, we ain't gonna worry about Iran right now. We don't like you, Iran, but we're gonna deal with Hamas first. Because Hamas be the ones, you see them throwing rocks. They be in the slingshot throwing rocks at the tanks, and they be sniping them. You know what I mean? So they go to war with them instead of people that can fight back. You know, and they always had that type of spirit. You know what I mean? You can see it. Even today. Verse 19, therefore it shall be when the Lord thy God have given thee rest from all thy enemies round about in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance, to possess it, that thou shalt blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. Thou shalt not forget it. Okay? So, you see what's going on.
Neff has serious injuries.
We believe there's an afterlife, and we believe that these young men are for sure in a really beautiful and sweet spot.
The 4 were friends and classmates. All had studied at a Jewish school together. 3 of them were from Lakewood. The family of one victim, Aaron Leibovitz, shared this photo of him, saying in part, anyone who he crossed paths with quickly became a friend and part of his ever-growing circle. Rabbi Shlomo Landau says Aaron and another passenger, Shlomo Cohen, were friends with his son.
We loved it when they would come to our house. I mean, my kids loved it.
The CEO of Kai Lifeline, a crisis support organization, says they're offering counseling to the community.
They are able to kind of give emotional first aid
to the various different people that are affected by this terrible trauma.
Now, still a lot of questions here. It is not clear how or why Neff was driving the wrong way on the turnpike. And today, New Jersey State Police put out a call for any witnesses who may have seen this happen to contact them as they continue to investigate. So far, no.
Yeah, you can't lock up God, so it's kind of how.
Lucky.
Somebody
did you hear what he said? He said that they get counseling for something about their karma. Did you hear that part? Well, actually, he was saying that because of what they did, like what the children's did. I mean, I don't know if I don't know if I heard it clearly, but it sounded like for their karma.
Oh, except for their karma.
Yeah. If you can back it up, maybe a few seconds, right when he was saying they can get counseling, then he kind of said for their karma.
Oh, let me see.
Yeah.
What is this guy? It was the right here.
When they would come to our house, I mean, my kids loved it.
The CEO of Kai Lifeline, a crisis support organization, says they're offering counseling to the community.
They are able to kind of give emotional first aid to the various different people that are affected by this terrible trauma.
He said trauma.
Still a lot.
Did you continue? Oh, okay. Well, no, I know he said that.
Yeah.
But just continue.
Oh, what did she say? She said something?
No, he's about to say it now.
Let me see.
Go a little bit more. Because I know he said for their trauma, but then he went on to say, I could be tweaking.
How or why Neff was driving.
Able to kind of give emotional first aid to the various different people that are affected by this terrible trauma.
Still a lot of questions here.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, he said trauma. Okay. I'm finna say I was tweaking. Well, I was listening too much.
But as you see, the scriptures is clear. You know what I mean? You put it out there. Most High going, you know what I mean? Put you in the get hit head on, and then get hit by a tractor trailer. That had to hurt. That had to leave a heck of a mess too. You know what I mean? All praise to the Most High. He's still he's working for us. Okay. All right. Now let's get the wolf in sheep's clothing. Let's get Matthew chapter 7 and verse 15. You got people that give everything they got, every penny they got. This time period we're living in now, we talked about it. Was it last Wednesday or the Sabbath? I'm not 100% sure. I think the Sabbath talked about SNAP benefits, food stamps, not going out in November. Some states have, made the call already, like don't expect anything. Pennsylvania being one of them. And I don't know if it was New York or Delaware being the other one. But, a lot of people depend on food stamps to feed their family. Now that the government shutdown happened, ironically, that's not going to happen for November. So, if you do have an extra $10, $20, or whatever, it would be best spent on helping people in your local community. You know what I'm saying? You might be like, I need help, and I hear you. You know what I'm saying? But remember, you bless others, you'll be blessed, especially Israelites, right? And who knows? You might say, like, well, they're not in the truth, so I'm not giving anything to the local food pantries or something like that. You don't know that. You know what I mean? You do not know that. And whether they're practicing Israelites or not. Okay. But it's going to get crazy because people are already getting on TikTok and social media saying, I'm just going to steal. You know what I mean? That's what it is. I'm going to feed my family. And, through the scriptures, Second Ezra's 15th chapter, it talks about people gonna be breaking in, neighbors are gonna be breaking in neighbors' houses for lack of food. You know what I mean? All right. So now, with that in mind, right, you have wolves in sheep's clothing that are just getting money from the people, not giving it back for the people, just hoarding dough, hoarding people's last dollars. They think that's going to be the, they're paying for salvation. You know what I mean? And these false prophets take advantage of that. And we know through the scriptures that's not going to last. People going to be Most High going to knock these dudes off. Okay. Let's get Matthew chapter 7 and verse 15. Beware of false prophets which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are raving wolves. Okay. So they look like us. You know what I mean? It's not Esau coming out there. Of course there is, you got Joel Osteen and stuff like that. But these men look like us, walk like us, talk like us, come from the same neighborhoods. So it's like, oh, okay, they the Most High sheep. But nah, they're wolves, man. They're wolves trying to devour anything and everything. A lot of these dudes say, "Oh man, I used to be a pimp." You know what I'm saying? I used to steal. I used to sell drugs. You know what I mean? I used to commit all types of crime and pimp women and all this other stuff and abuse women and abuse people, right? But I changed. That's where everything else was right. All that on that side was absolutely right. They talking about they changed. It's a daggone lie, man. Stone cold lie. So let's get Jeremiah 23, 14 on deck. Okay. Let's watch this next video.
Now, y'all know I've been one that's been really against a lot of moves of the Black church because the Black church has been siphoning a lot of funding out of the Black community, and there's nothing to show for it. Nothing at all. Now, you have a pastor, Marvin Winans, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. And he was, I know everybody talk about that video with Umar when the lady gave him, I think she gave him $10. And he said, yeah, sister, I appreciate it, but next time make it 20. Well, this is kind of almost the same type of video, but way more money than what Umar was saying at the time in his car. Now, I want you to watch this lady. Pay attention to the dynamics, too. Because the dynamic in this video is a lot of reasons. A lot of Black men don't even be, some Black men attend. But just look at the dynamics here, because to me, it's just, this is so, it's annoying. But we're going to talk about it.
I, Roberta McCoy, giving faith and stand in unity with the vision of perfecting churches, sowing this seed of $1,000 plus $235 and receiving the blessings to come to all that participate.
Now that's only $1,200.
Yes.
Y'all not listening to what I'm saying. If you have 1,000 plus 1,000.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna work on the other 800.
Well, that ain't what I asked you to do.
So as you can see, the lady gave $1,235. Okay, $1,235. He wanted $2,000 is what he wanted, and he had the child up there with her. Okay, cool. Now, they did a research on what Black folks give the Black church on average, and the only thing I can get really was from 2015, they had one in Black Enterprise. They talked about that Black people on average give 12 to 13 billion with a B, of our dollars away to the Black church every year. They say since 1980, I'll make sure I'm quoting this right. They say since 1980, between tithes and donations to Black churches has exceeded $450 billion.
Billion with a B. All right, let's get Jeremiah 23 and 14. I have seen also in the prophets of Jerusalem a horrible thing. They commit adultery and walk in lies. They strengthen also the hands of evildoers and none doeth return from his wickedness. They are all of them unto me as Sodom, and the inhabitants thereof as Gomorrah. So they're with other men's wives, committing adultery. Do you know what I'm saying? Lusting after other men's wives, still, that's adultery. Do you know what I'm saying? Strengthening the hands of evildoers. You know, is that money's not going to, like he's saying, it's not going to build hospitals. It's not going to build schools. It's not going to anything positive for the people. You know what I mean? They partying with it. You know what I mean? It's turn up from Sunday to Sunday. Every day ending in Y. You know what I mean? Strengthen the hands of evildoers and nobody returning from their wickedness. No repentance. I'm right because I said I'm right. You know what I mean? God says I'm right in my eyes, so I'm telling y'all I'm right. You know what I mean? And it's a shame. So what happens? He said, y'all like Sodom and Gomorrah, you're gonna be destroyed. You know what I mean? And this type of economy, giving $1,200 to anybody, you know what I'm saying, is a chunk of change. Giving it to the pastor, and then he says, hold up, wait. This ain't enough. You know what I'm saying? This ain't enough. What you mean ain't enough? He said, and she went down to she's like $1,232. That's probably cleaned her account. She didn't have $2,000. He said, look, you got $2,000. You want to pay the man? You want to pay the man to get into heaven? You got to come up with that bread.
Would it be? If we all was putting up together our money like this, there would be no Black American in this country homeless. Every Black American would have a home. But yet, since 1980, you've given $450 billion to the Black church. And what do they have to show for it? Do they have job programs? Do they actually go out here and put money in your back pocket? Do they feed you? What do they do? Do they have daycares for our children? Do they have community centers, nursing homes, things like that? I'm talking about all of them. I'm not talking about, well, my church got it. No. They should have it. You understand what I'm saying? They tax free. They don't have to pay taxes. So they should have everything, right? But we have to pay attention to what we're putting our money at. This man sat up here and told this woman after she gave him money, and see, let me tell y'all something about that. Oh, I'm going to give money to this church. I'm believing God for this. So let me give this money. That is one of the biggest con jobs ever. You can't buy God. You can't buy him. Giving money to this preacher, you can't buy God. You can't. Well, if you pay this, you will get this from God. You are turning God into some capitalist. God isn't a capitalist, so God don't need nothing from you. He don't even need your paper money. He needs your obedience.
Obedience, definitely. Let's go to Acts chapter 5 and verse 1. And this is what happens when you play with the Most High's money. You know what I mean? Play with God's money, bad things happen, right? Let's start let's start at the top. Acts chapter 5, verse 1. But a certain man named Ananias with Sapphira, I'm saying that night, right? His wife sold a possession and kept back part of the price, his wife also being privy to it, and brought a certain part and laid it at the apostles' feet. But Peter said, Ananias, why has Satan filled thy heart to lie to the Holy Ghost and keep back part of the price of the land? Was it not thine own? And after it was sold, was it not thine own power? Why hast thou conceived this thing in thy heart? Thou hast not lied unto men, but unto Yahweh. So he said, I'm a sell for this much, and I'm gonna give you that money from this. But then took some money back. Like, hold on. That wasn't everything. He said it was yours. It was yours when you sold it. It was your money when you got it. But you come in here on some, here's everything. You messing with the Most High's money, man. You not lying to man, you lying to Yahweh, okay? And Ananias, hearing these words, fell down and gave up the ghost, and great fear came on all of them that heard these things. You can die like that. You know what I mean? You supposed to have money allocated for a certain thing, and you don't. You pocket it, you do your own thing, you can die. Just like that. And the young man arose, wounded him, and carried him out and buried him. And it was about the space of 3 hours after, when his wife, not knowing what was done, came in. And Peter said unto her, tell me whether you sold the land for so much. And she said, yeah, for so much. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're lying. Like, why are you lying? You know? And to be honest, you'd be like, look, I'm selling this land. I'm gonna give you half of the money. You told me I'm gonna give everything. You know? Here, yeah, that's all of it. That's all of it. That's a lie. Okay? And Peter said unto her, how is it that ye have agreed together to tempt the Spirit of the Lord? Behold, the feet, Slakia, the feet of them which have buried thy husband are at the door, and shall carry thee out. Then she fell down straightway at his feet and yielded up the ghost. And the young men came in and found her dead, and carried her forth, buried her by her husband. And great fear came upon all the church and upon many as heard these things. You know what I'm saying? If you say it's for something that has to do with the Most High God, and you deceive the people, then you're at risk of death. And not for nothing, it's a lot of people that don't fear God. They read something like this and they say, it ain't gonna happen to me. I'm good. You know, it's my money. I don't need, anybody gonna tell me nothing. And then, you know, when bad things happen, you can trace it back to, you know, somebody being dishonest, somebody pocketing funds, somebody doing their own thing. The Lord's not with that, okay? We watch a couple more minutes of this, and I got one more video after this.
To his word. He needs you to be obedient and help somebody. Listen, that woman would have did a lot better taking that money and spreading even just $200 a piece out to several single moms like herself, right, who's struggling. Say, look, sister, I'm gonna bless you 200, you 200, 200, because I know you got kids. I'm gonna give y'all all 200, right? Hey, you may not get your food stamps. Let me go ahead and give you 200 for food. Let me give you even you won't have to give them cash. So say, look, let me give you a card to Publix. Let me give you a card to Kroger. Let me give you, I'm buying cards for these single mothers. I'm giving, and all they can get is food on it, so you're not worried about it wasting it, right? There'd have been so much better to give money to other single mothers than give it to him. And then when you do a good deed like that, God see what you're taking your funds and helping those that's not as fortunate, and then he'll bless you. But you sitting up here giving money to this preacher talking about, I'm looking for a blessing. That means you can buy God through this man, and that is nothing in the scripture talk about you can buy God. You can't buy him. If that's the case, Trump would have him on speed dial.
Yep.
Why would Trump the other day talk about how he don't think he may even get into heaven? Trump got way more money to buy if God was about buying. Right?
All right, so let's check out. You know what I mean? That's it's a problem, and it's going to get alleviated because the Most High going to kill people. You know what I'm saying? So let's go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 3 and verse 6. Dudes just sitting there with their hand out. You know, what did Paul do? You know, let's read about what Paul did. All right. 2 Thessalonians chapter 3 and verse 6. Now we command you, brethren, in the name of our Lord Hamashiach Yahushai, that ye withdraw yourselves from every brother that walketh disorderly, and not after to the tradition which he received of us. For yourselves know how ye ought to follow us, for we behave not ourselves disorderly among you. Neither did we eat any man's bread for naught, but wrought with labor and travail night and day, that we might not be chargeable to any of you. You know what I'm saying? They work for their stuff. They work for what they got, right? Not because ye have not, Slakia, not because we have not power, but to make ourselves an ensample unto you to follow us. Like we trying to living by example, you know. Not do as I say, not as I do. He's saying I'm walking the walk. All right, verse 10. For even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that if any would not work, neither should he eat. You gotta, you mean, put in that work. Verse 11. For we hear that there are some of you which walk among you disorderly, working not at all, but are busybodies. Everybody business. Everybody business. You know what I'm saying? So much time on their hand, idly, doing nothing, right? You know what I'm saying? He's saying, don't do that. You know? It's people that are just sitting there with their hand out. All right, verse 12. Now them that are such we command and exhort by our Lord Hamashiach Yahushai, that with quietness they work and eat their own bread. Okay? Let's go to Proverbs 19 and 15. Let's watch this video. He got a couple, it's Esau, he got a little foul mouth. He says he drops a couple words, but it's a good video, right? Because it talks about something that's prevalent in our community that's holding us back. Drug use. Okay? And particularly talking about marijuana and how it could make you idle. You're sitting on the couch. You know, oh man, I can't watch a movie unless I'm high. I can't do anything creative. I'm an artist. I can't draw unless I have marijuana. You know what I'm saying? But the reality is, like he brings up, there's things you do when you're high is you look back at it when you're sober, you're like, man, that's terrible. You know what I mean? But let's watch the video. Okay. Because some of y'all might be watching this with a blunt in your hand right now. You gotta put that joint down. We in the last days, they cutting off food stamps. It is time to wake up, get out of that mind state, and sharpen up. Okay?
Psych Hacks, Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is weed is more dangerous than you think. So I've worked with a lot of guys who use cannabis in some form or another. And I also live in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is sort of like ground zero with respect to recreational cannabis use. And I've noticed that there is a general attitude that weed is a harmless drug that requires deeper examination. Now, there is certainly some truth to this. For example, folks can't overdose on marijuana like they could on heroin or meth. So in this sense, cannabis is not dangerous with respect to its toxicity profile. And it also generally doesn't generate much in the way of physiological dependence. Physiological dependence is when your body adapts to expect a certain amount of substance from your daily use. For instance, when folks develop physiological dependence to alcohol, which is a neurodepressant, their sympathetic nervous system ramps up in expectation of the booze. This is why if they don't drink, heavy users can break out in sweats, have terrible headaches, and suffer a host of other problems. In fact, alcohol, if you didn't know, is one of the few drugs, the withdrawal from which can actually prove fatal. Their sympathetic nervous system goes nuts and they go into cardiac arrest, which is why heavy users might need to detox under medical supervision.
So that's serious, right? You're talking about alcohol. You know what I'm saying? And, through scriptures, it's like, oh, you can drink, right? But if you're getting drunk all the time, morning, noon, and night, and you drink so you don't get the sweats, you drink so you don't get the shakes, you drink to kind of stay normal, you got an issue. You know what I'm saying? It says a drunkard's not going to make it into the kingdom of heaven. So that's something you definitely should work on immediately. Okay? Because you can't be out there, somebody's walking around with a cigarette in their ear or smoking a blunt. You'd be like, you're going to hell. God is not with that cigarette smoke. God is not with that weed. Da da da. But you got a flask in your back pocket. You know what I mean? You just turn and take a little sip, keep it going. Nah, it's still, you're using that as what? It's like an idol. You know what I mean? That's something that you crave more than following the how about Shem Yahushua? That could kick you out of the kingdom. Okay? Let's continue.
You don't see those kinds of things with weed. We might argue that it's psychologically addictive, but it's not really physiologically addictive like a lot of other drugs out there. So these are kind of the arguments for why weed is harmless. But I'm here to argue that it's this patina of harmlessness that makes weed a Trojan horse. It looks harmless, but it actually carries within it a really dangerous liability. And the main liability associated with weed use is that weed makes you think that you are using your time well.
All right, let's get that. Proverbs chapter 15, chapter 19 and verse 15. Slothfulness casteth into deep sleep, and an idle soul shall suffer hunger.
It's as simple as that. When people are high, they could watch paint dry and think it's fascinating. When people are high, they think they are more creative, more intelligent, and more productive than they actually are. If you don't believe me, try rereading some of the things that you wrote while you were high when you're sober. What might have made sense to you in that state of consciousness doesn't quite make sense anymore. Now, before I go any further, if you're liking what you're hearing, then please consider sending this video to someone who might benefit from its message. It's word of mouth referrals like this that really help the channel to grow. And if you're thinking about going to grad school, then be sure to check out my top-rated GRE self-study program at stellargre.com. You can use the coupon code PSYCH for 10% off all membership plans. Now, why do so many young people use weed? Well, besides the opportunity for socializing, which is a huge draw for that drug, a lot of young guys get into weed because, well, their lives aren't that great. Let's be real. It's actually very, very hard to be a young man, and our culture doesn't really recognize that whatsoever. You're kind of useless to other men because you have no skills or experience, and women don't want you because you're generally poor and irresponsible. The lifestyle of many young men sucks. So a lot of young guys, because they don't have a lot going on in their lives, they kind of use weed to emotionally cope with their circumstances. And on some level, this makes sense. Like, if your circumstances are miserable and you can do nothing about them, it makes sense to try to accommodate yourself to that reality emotionally. I don't begrudge anyone that use of the drug. However, the real question is it actually true that there's nothing you can do to affect your shitty situation?
So, and you look at this one idea, right? This one thought is that you started doing drugs, let's just say weed, right? You started smoking weed for a reason. Like you said, it might have been socially, you all get, every time you get together with your friends, you smoke this, that, third. But you continue normally for another separate reason. And once you can break those two down and separate them, because you're thinking, oh man, this is socially, I'm just doing it, you know how we do. We just roll up, smoke a L, this, then a third, pop an edible, you know how we do, right? But there's another reason why you continue to do it. And like he's bringing out, if you got nothing going on, and if you go back in time to people that used to smoke or whatever like that, used to pop edibles, hit edibles or whatever like that, if you actually look honestly, you know what I'm saying, into your life, you'd be like, yeah, that was a rough time in my life. You know what I'm saying? And if you're still doing it, you might still be in that rough time of your life. And mentally, you're trying to say, "Oh man, this is great. I'm living life." But you haven't taken your trash out in 3 weeks. You know what I mean? Your lawn's growing out, 10 feet high. You know what I mean? You haven't cleaned up, vacuumed, mopped the floor in months, maybe even a year. You're like, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. Wearing the same clothes back to back to back to back. Probably not doing good when you really look at it. You know what I mean? So it's a reality check, and coming back to, stop lying to yourself. You know what I mean? Because we're looking at the kingdom of heaven. We're looking at all these things happening in the sky and on the earth, these wars and rumors of wars. Trump looks like he's going to bomb Venezuela soon. They're supposed to have a meeting with Putin, and all of a sudden, they canceled it. And he says, "Oh, I stopped 8 wars, but I'm about to get into a ninth one." He said that. Somebody, I think a general or admiral rather, was talking to a group of cadets. I don't know if it was West Point or something like that, a bunch of military graduates. And he's saying, get ready for war. So all these things are happening. You gotta tighten up. You know what I mean? Tighten up, because once you have that meeting, like the one brother had, he had a meeting. He said, he grabbed his arm, says, "Your time. It's your time right now." So you get under that microscope, you get under scrutinized. You don't want to be found wanting. All right. Matter of fact, let's get Ephesians chapter 5. Speaking of that, Ephesians chapter 5, verse 15. "See then that thou walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil." You got to know what time you're living in. This ain't time to turn up. You know what I mean? Ain't time to party, let's all get wasted. That's what Gucci said. Party, let's all get wasted, right? Gucci comes out on the Breakfast Club. He has schizophrenia. You know what I mean? So people, "Oh man, Gucci, yeah, he be turning up and having a good time, this, that, and the third." He's having mental issues. He got spirits on him. It could have been through heavy drug use, popping beans. You know what I mean? Always popping ecstasy pills and smoking weed constantly and everything like that. That could mess you up. So the people that we might have looked up to at a certain age or whatever like that, we started going back in time, that he was going through it. He was hurting. So it's time to put away those childish things, and come back to these law, statutes, commandments. You know what I mean? We men now. All right. If you're a young man, Esau don't care if you're a young man. You're going to war. He said, "I'm gonna draft you," and women. He don't care. All right. So let's focus in and sharpen up.
For some people, for a certain amount of time, it may be true that there's little to nothing they can do to make their situation instrumentally better in the near future. However, for the vast majority of people, that's bullshit. There are things that they can do to make their situation better. They won't necessarily move the needle right away, but as a young man, time is on your side. Yes, it is. Jagger was not singing about the ladies in that song. So efforts accumulate, and over time, you can really change your lifestyle so that you're not in such a shitty situation anymore. And once you succeed in doing that, the appeal of getting high will lessen. This is because being high is generally a way of accommodating to the harsh and unpleasant aspects of reality. However, if your situation is pleasant, meaningful, rewarding, and fulfilling, you actually won't want to avoid reality. You'll want to be present for your life as much as possible for as long as possible. So it's actually possible to raw dog reality if you have a fairly decent life. And that's something that folks can effect, maybe not immediately, but generally over time. Weed, however, saps people's motivation to make that change. The real danger with weed is not that it's acutely dangerous, but that it kind of makes the user's shitty situation more tolerable, which allows it to continue much longer through time. And in this way, weed keeps folks gently trapped for years in circumstances that they might long ago have been able to change. Now, when folks stop using and they come into increased emotional contact with how unpleasant their situation is, things get harder, things get worse. However, that's actually kind of a good thing. That's because miserable situations are unsustainable. Weed makes a potentially miserable situation tolerable, which keeps users in that situation longer. If, on the other hand, you remove that tolerance and you feel the reality of your situation, you're not just going to throw your hands up in the air and say, "Welp, I guess it's a lifetime of pain and misery for me." You will do things to escape that pain. I guarantee it. Even suicidally depressed people run out of burning buildings. You may have previously been using weed to escape that pain, but if that route is now blocked by your will, you will find other ways to get out. You got to trust yourself on that. Not here to shame or blame anyone for using, just offering my thoughts. What do you think? Does this fit with your own experience?
All right, let's go to Proverbs chapter 6 and verse 6. You know, we have to think about what we're going to put on our resume. You know what I'm saying? A resume to get into the kingdom of heaven. What did I do? Do you know what I mean? This is a time period we got to think about these things. You know what I mean? After that sky cracks open, it ain't, oh, hold on, let me go back. Let me do this. You know, we got to get it done now. You know, can't be all hired up, drunken, falling all over the place, and wasting time when we could be doing the will of Yahweh Shem Yahushai instead of our own will, our own fleshly lust. Okay? Proverbs chapter 6, verse 6. Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provideth her meat in the summer and gather her food in the harvest. How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? When wilt thou arise out of thy sleep? Let's get it. You know, let's get it. Let's rise out of our sleep, wake up the lost sheep of the house of Israel in these last days, and keep moving in the right direction. All right? But as you already know, everyone is stupid except for me. You know what I'm saying? Homer Simpson reference for those that grew up during that era. All right? But that should, reality, let's humble down and focus. Okay? Anybody on YouTube, you like, share, comment, subscribe, keep the algorithm going in the right direction. And we're going to close out in the Lord's Prayer. So if you want to stand and face the east, prostrate and face the east, I'll give you a minute, less than a minute to do that. Chom Yashav. It's the Lord's Prayer in Paleo Hebrew. Abanawa, Shabbat Shemayim, Kodash, Ayah, Shemka, Yahweh, Malachbaka, Daba'a, Ratazaka, Ayah, Asha, Barataza, Kawa, Ayah, Bashamayim, Nadananawa, Lacham, Kal, Yawam, Wasalafnawa, Kawawafnawa, Kasalafnawa, Kawawafinawa, Wala'a, Dabinawa, Banasai 1, Abal, Hawashinawa, Mayan, Rai, Kaya, Laka, Hamalakwa, Wa'ala, Wataparaf, Labalumyam, Amen. It's the book of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 9. After this manner, therefore pray ye, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. O Lord, Yahweh, Ba'ashem Mashiach, Yahweh Shai, protect us in these last days. Wipe away our sins, increase our faith, increase our spiritual enlightenment, increase our love for each other, increase our emotional well-being, take away the things that are holding us back, take away our sin, take away any addiction that we might have, increase us spiritually, emotionally, physically, take away our ailments, increase our finances in these last days, protect us, seeing what's going on in the world, taking away food out of people that are living in poverty and giving it to countries that they expect to hide themselves in the rocks down there in Argentina. Recompense them speedily, Yahweh. Recompense Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, Byron Trump, Melania Trump, Pam Bondi, Bonagino, Kash Patel, all the administration. Recompense them speedily. Baba Shah, make it visible to the world. Allow us to see your wrath and your destruction on these wicked people that are oppressing and bringing Nazism to this country. Not saying it wasn't there before, but the evilness is spreading. Elon Musk doing Nazi salutes. All these people are greatly demonic, Satanists. Destroy them, Yahweh Ba'ashem Mashiach Yahweh Shai. You know, Pete Habachek, or whatever his name is, the head of the armed services, knock their planes out of the sky, have them crash and burn, and the whole world to see that the Most High Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai don't play about his people. Baba Kashar, Baba Kashar, Baba Kashar. And make haste to bring your son back down to destroy Babylon, Esau, Edom, Idumea. Let amazing things happen with Three-Eye Atlas. The whole world can see your power and things you're going to bring to the earth. Allow the Israelites to have visions, have dreams, what to do next, clarification through the scriptures, through prophecy. And in Yahweh's name, we pray. Amen. Yeah, all praises, everyone. Dawada. No, it's actually late, but a lot of stuff we had to get out today because everyone is stupid except for me. All right, just joking. But gotta humble down in these last days and keep open mind with all these things, especially the stuff that was in the beginning, because it's going to come to pass. You know what I'm saying? You're going to see the reality of the whole quote unquote UFO phenomenon. It's going to be on everybody's mind, everybody's lips, because it is what it is. It's happening, and there's nothing that anybody can do to stop it. It's actually increasing. Okay, so keep an eye out for that, and have a good night. Kwame Ashala, we got next. Shalom.